Sup, everybody? This is Carrick with ACG, and I'm here with Johnny for episode 519 of the Best Gaming Podcast. We had a tiny bit of an issue there. Hopefully, it all works well. How you doing, Johnny?
Let's go. I'm doing amazing, actually, this week.
Okay. Well, that was not what I was expecting. Like, how amazing? And why that amazing?
Just had a solid week. Everything worked out really well.
No issues at work? Solid, solid performance all the way around?
Solid. Yeah. Good cruising.
It's nice to have a good week that it doesn't have to have any, like, super huge positive things about it. It's just sort of like, I got through this one. Everything feels good. It all feels very, comfortable. And you get through it, and you can sort of chalk it up as a win in a world that doesn't always like us to win. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. I took my cat to the vet. We thought maybe we had to operate one of his eyes because he had like teary eyes constantly. But in the end, we didn't have to do it. So that was also.
So what's the cause of that?
Apparently, it's just like genetics. Sometimes they have a bit extra skin there that causes irritation. So we're just giving some drops and stuff, and he's doing pretty well.
Damn. So you guys had to, you guys almost had to operate?
Yeah. We brought him in, but they had a really close look and stuff, and we decided it didn't quite make sense to do the operation.
So do you have to just keep an eye on him from now on?
Yeah, just keep an eye on him, give him drops every day, antibiotics for a little bit.
Well, damn,
good to go.
That's good. That's good. A little saving is always nice. Dogs, cats, they can be expensive.
I mean, it was a huge bill, I'm not going to lie. But also, it's just nice to not have to do an operation because you always get a bit uneasy when,
and the bills can get huge,
anesthetics
like you said,
and stuff.
They can get ridiculous to the point to where you're like, dude, I don't know. I may just have to sell it on the street for a little while. This just may have to be what happens. Hopefully everybody else in here is doing excellent. We have a bunch of actually like small news, and then Nightreign released, which you played, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So we'll get some impressions from Johnny on that. I think with Nightreign, it's just, I've definitely noticed a lot of people, not necessarily hedging their bets, but they're like, dude, I don't know, man. I feel a little bit tentative towards jumping back into Elden Ring. Did you feel any of that, or did you just leap back in and you were like, fuck you, Elden Ring, I've got you? Like I'm you're mine, bitch. Or did you feel any tentative feelings jumping in?
Kind of. I think it feels different enough that I didn't feel like I was playing Elden Ring in a way, because it's kind of quite different.
Okay.
So it felt a little bit more like your standard action thing as opposed to the
Dark Souls style, but at least this way, open world. Okay.
Yeah.
What about the graphics, all that kind of stuff? Pretty good?
So what's good is that it's very, very solid, very smooth. And if you have, I don't know if you ever played co-op in Elden Ring or any of the other like prior, but it was never great.
No.
Like the net code or whatever just wasn't good. Even if you were pretty local to whoever you were playing with, you had like rubber banding and all these like artifacts and stuff going on.
Definitely.
So it was never a great experience. And this time somehow they did a really good job. It feels like everybody's playing on the same,
like on
whatever
the same local server or same PC. Almost.
Like it's working. Kind of like Borderlands, where it feels like, I think for the most part, what you see matches what's actually happening. Yeah, exactly. So that's super cool. And it's fully locked at 60 in the sense that it won't go above it. So you don't even have options there too. So it's just meant to be locked at 60. And in my system, it's been running really well. I want to just touch wood because they did say 50 series had problems, but so far I really haven't had any. And so
you're saying they're locking this at 60 even on PC, or are you on console?
Yeah, PC.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's just no options.
That might be the reason why I was seeing some of those complaints that were popping up, where people were a little bit mad about, there were some performance issues, but I just saw some general, sort of, you can tell there's a game having some issues, and I didn't get a chance to look. but they're locking it at 60. I wonder if that's something, if they're going to explain that's with the net code and all that kind of thing, where it's like we're doing it a very.
We saw that in Dark Souls 3, where they had an explanation about animations and stuff like that.
Right.
I don't know if that will be the case, but I will say there's also a bit of a lack of options in the menu. You don't have any DLSS or like super sampling options at all right now.
Damn.
And and you don't have a lot of like detailed options like FOV, all this type of like PC settings. You have a bunch of like volumetric detail, texture detail, these types of things where you can dial in medium, high, low. But a lot of the usual PC settings and stuff like that, you don't have.
Yeah, that's probably
that's
what
like
I heard.
The only downside so far.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It is sort of, it does speak to them just and their engine that they've had issues with since, I mean, what was it?
Yes.
Durante or whatever
that's
had to fix it for years.
Yeah, that's a good segue to the other part of your question about like how are the graphics. They're they're Elden Ring. There's nothing. It does feel smoother than Elden Ring. Like I say, it's kind of brought to a really nice level of like everything's running really well. But it's the same level of detail you're used to from Elden Ring. Nothing really extra,
Gotcha.
I would say.
Wizard of Smoke, $2 super chat. Hello, friendos. It's finally Friday. Yes, it is. I hope you're doing well. Again, thank you for the DM. I hope this week is at least as good for you as it was for what it sounds like everybody else. It seems like everybody's actually had a pretty good week. Everybody I've talked to. It's been sort of we got some. I saw that the person who gives me some of the comments where they go around, there were some in there that seemed like they were a little down. We'll talk about those, but overall, it seems like generally people have had a pretty good week, which is always
solid week. Yeah.
Because you never quite know how it's going to be when you jump in here. Sometimes you jump in, you'll be like, yeah, man, this is going to be awesome. Everybody's going to love it.
What's the mood?
Yeah,
like everybody's just slow.
Yeah. They're like, dude, I hate everything. This is terrible. I got to do the 0.5 podcast. It's basically patrons first, then it goes to iTunes, Spotify, all those. Talked about just various little things within the industry. Those are also fun to do because it's just a sort of a stream of consciousness kind of thing. And so if anybody gets a chance and listens to those and wants answers or things to talk about, feel free to ask me if they don't fit in a 2-person podcast, even though Johnny and Silver and Reg Absy will probably at some point jump in. But if you guys have stuff that you just want tangentially talked about or talked about in depth even more, those times, that podcast in particular is probably a little bit easier for that. Especially, I think one of them I talked about compression for like 30 minutes on game engine and stuff, which I think I got some more questions on the questions that I answered in the last podcast in our questions today. So it's been a busy week. What else have you been playing other than Nightreign? You've been doing more Roadcraft?
Roadcraft, yeah. I've been doing quite a bit of that too.
Yeah.
And I have more thoughts we can talk about since last time. Really, I didn't have a lot of time into it. And now I've done several of the areas, like to 100%.
What's up?
Yeah. Overall, I like the game more than I like SnowRunner, which was I already liked that game a lot. But I think overall, this one has a lot more going for it. For me, as someone who does enjoy the either building or like the feeling that you're kind of adding something to that was always something I enjoyed in SnowRunner when you got to like fix a bridge or something like that, where it felt like you were making the area better in some way. And then in this game, that's kind of the highlight of the game, right? That is your goal. You're kind of running around, reestablishing different buildings, different routes, infrastructure, and things like that. So that's awesome. The vehicles are great. And I love how smooth the co-op experience is, because it's kind of like, it feels like in the prior games, the co-op took a second like focus compared to the single player. And in this one, it really feels like they were really thinking about co-op, because everything works so much better in co-op when you're doing these tasks. And you can, for example, say, bro, come over with the with the crane and help me out with this, and you can have a big truck where you're loading and stuff, is just a lot more enjoyable. And when you look at the map, you can see everything moving in real time too, which you could in SnowRunner, but it's just much more detailed and kind of like responsive in this one. So you can see exactly what every person's doing in real time, and like building stuff for each other. You can say, hey, I'll build you a bridge here so you can do your route, or whatever it may be. So that stuff works super well. You weren't kidding about the dogmatic AI with the route nodes.
Yeah,
that's been a bit of a pain point. They have, by the way, they released a massive patch this week.
Didn't fix it. Not too much.
Yeah, they said what they fixed is like, hey, if your route works for the first vehicle,
it'll work for the rest.
Yeah. Will they will be much more forgiving, let's say. And I did notice that, but I agree with you. It's still, it's still like very anal. Mm-hmm. And it's funny that every truck is worse than even your worst available truck.
Yeah.
Because they don't have diff lock, right? They don't have any of this stuff. And so it's funny, they had to invent a worst truck that's not available to you as a player to put in the routes to be that. So that's always, it definitely feels like that's like an added annoyance or difficulty where realistically you could have gotten the route to work first try, but because of all these idiosyncrasies where, it touched on some soft ground and now it doesn't move, or like it touched on a rock and it's permanently stuck, and you have to adjust all these things. I would say that has been the biggest annoyance so far.
And by the way, I did see your thing. Wizard says, thank you for the DM as well, Carrick. This week's been a great personally, a drag professionally. Well, we'll try to make it so that at least it continues to be good personally. I can't affect it. Well, maybe we'll affect the professional. Who knows? Maybe you'll decide tomorrow you want to start a podcast. With Roadcraft, dude. The positive of having the projects cannot be understated. And when you look at what the original games were, Expedition, I think they did a worse job of making sure you knew it wasn't SnowRunner and MudRunner. That's on them. I still enjoyed what I played, but it was not as holistic an experience as the prior two, nor Roadcraft. I think with Roadcraft, there is something that is like a tangential joy that you can get regardless of what you're doing, as long as you're open to this not being MudRunner and SnowRunner. So it's the construction, it's co-op, it's even single player, it's chalking off or checking off the different missions and just being like, okay, I got this mission done, I got this mission done, and then another one pops up and another one, and then the maps are huge, so you can get through the map in 2 hours on your own. Yeah. But if you want to go in heavy, then it's a lot longer time frame. I've seen people spend 18 to 20 hours making this area basically look pristine, or as pristine as they think it did prior. And that's where I understand. I don't understand any review bombing, obviously, because they were pretty clear this one was not the same. I do understand, though, that the desire that people have when it comes to gas and when it comes to differential, when it comes to shifting, the idea that they don't have those things, that they don't have the ability to do those in the game, does bother me a little bit. And it sounds like they're adding something. Did you see that, where they stated they're adding gas, or they're doing something to that? They're like in some way either adding more complexity to the cars in some way. I saw a dev post that they were like, we understand where you're coming from, like where we are looking at these things. So did you see anything about that?
I didn't see anything about the gas. I think what they have with the fuel, which is the ability to recall vehicles to your, what's called the logistics,
to your logistics
the utility
center.
vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Oh, to the utility vehicle, right?
Yeah, that works really well, and especially for builds, it feels awesome to just say, you rock up to the build and you press like one button and boom, you got your 4 vehicles that are going to do the work for you. That's cool. I think that works really well. I haven't felt like that I missed having to worry about fuel in this game. because the game is not about traversing tricky terrain. That can be part of it sometimes, but it's certainly not. That's not the focus.
Right.
And so I wouldn't necessarily want to worry about fuel in this game. I don't think it would add
as an add-on to it. You wouldn't like it. Yeah. I think also with this one, you do have the ability to, the one thing that people don't, for whatever reason, it's probably because of the way the tutorial popped up, but a lot of people didn't realize that command vehicle does allow you to teleport everybody to a road, not just one car at a time. You can go in there, park, teleport every single vehicle you need to do work on a road. You can do all those things. And I think that it's easy to miss some of the tutorials in the game. I would like to see them work on tutorials and work on the ability for them to maybe pass on data and then remove the tutorials. Dude, the amount of times I was playing that game,
oh my God,
it's nuts. There's just, you get these huge blocks of text at times, and you're like, seriously, man.
And they're like sticky.
And they're sticky. You know? Yeah, it's like, dude, you got to figure this out. You got, like, there's got to be some way in which you can give me data. Go look. It's
like, hey, here's how to use the dump truck. 20 hours
in, it's still telling you that a dump truck can be used to drop sand. And you're like, I am actually here because I have done that 11 times. Like, I wouldn't even be able to see that tutorial on this map because I wouldn't even be able to get to the map. Yeah, there's some issues there. I think with the damage to the vehicles, I'm fine with it being missing. I don't know how they would handle fuel. I do think the winch points and the way the game feels, I feel like I can't use the winch as much as I want. That feels odd. I feel like with SnowRunner and MudRunner, everything was winchable. And in this game, you're like, dude, why can't I throw this winch, over to this tree and pull myself out? And that a lot of times that doesn't pop up as much, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, does it feel like it's less of an option to get out of
it? Does. Okay. And not only that, but it also feels like finding a winch point sometimes doesn't work, because the way it works in this one is that you just move the camera, and based on where you move it, it will select automatically a point for you based on where the camera is looking at, instead of the other one where you could kind of directly cycle between winch points. And there will be times where there clearly is a viable point that I can use, but because of how the camera is like seeing stuff, it's not able to give me that winch point.
Right. Yeah.
So whether you're trying to pull yourself from a tree that isn't being picked up by the camera, or like, there are definitely some issues there.
So I think I think for me, when I play the game, I just go into it. I want to do the project. I want to get a project done. I want to see how the project works. That all is great, works fine. What I would like, let's talk about it from not as a reviewer, not as like somebody where you and I talk about audio. I have to ask this. Do you think it should be more bombastic and fake when it comes to the sounds? The reason why I ask this is because I know I four-wheel. I know what going 4-buying sounds like. It does sound that basic and that blasé and that tinny sometimes and that tonally restricted. You'll be driving, you'll hear a thunk, but it's transferred through the car, so it sounds, it's got a sound to it that's very hard to discern. But this is a game. And I will say that when I was driving, I gave him kudos. It sounds like it probably should. However, when you play a game that doesn't sound like it should, but sounds like a game and it's augmented, I honestly feel like this game would have been better, especially the driving where you're stuck in a spot for 5 minutes and you're just spinning your wheels, but you're moving an inch forward, so you know you're making it, and you're not going to reset. And all you hear is the same tonal sound of that. By the way, that's what you hear in real life. I'm not saying that. I'm saying as a gamer, that with no alteration, no, like, not even a little bit of a thub in there, it gets, it doesn't entrance me like I was hoping it would audio.
Yeah, no, and I mean, nothing about the sound, even like the music that's there, nothing really called out to me. And I mean,
you mean the music?
You know, the music.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've kind of been using my own music there, and the sounds at this point, I'm kind of tuning them out because, like you're saying, it's so steady.
Yeah.
That, like, you know, there's nothing really there interesting. And I would have loved to have like this big throaty, when you pick up like a big vehicle, you know, I would love to have a bit more of a just a boom to it, something to tell you like, yo, you're moving like
you're doing shit
5
right now.
tons of
right.
yeah.
Amud, $5 super chat. Running Division 2 has been a blast. Happy Friday. Thank you very much. Yeah, well, I'll try to get on there. Sorry if I've been I'm not down, but like I'm doing so much stuff on the side that I noticed for the last couple, like almost weeks, we've been in chat and everybody else has been talking. I've been just sort of like zoning out. And even when we were playing the game, it wasn't with the same energy in the last couple days. And I was like, man, why is that? And I realized I think I was just pulling myself too many ways. So I apologize if it hasn't been incredibly, I mean, you say it's enjoyable and I absolutely appreciate that, but I noticed it wasn't as fiery. It was just like, hey, there's a guy over there. There's a guy over here. And my brain, I was playing, we were all joking and stuff, but it was like, you know how it is where sometimes you're still enjoying the game. You're playing co-op with somebody, but it's just, and this has been not just Division. I was playing another game with somebody and I realized, man, nobody said anything for like 15 minutes. I was doing a co-op game with just me and the person. And I was like, do you want to still play? They're like, yeah, good? Dude, I'm having, let's go. I'm having a blast. And then I just get quiet again. It was weird. It was one of those things. I really enjoyed Division. We're going to talk more about it here in a bit. Romulus says, not sure if I missed a joke, but Nightreign isn't a DLC. It's a standalone. Yeah. Well, it's DLC, but yeah. Yeah, that is true. It's an expansion. We'll call it a standalone expansion to be accurate. But no joke. Just simply don't care. At least too much for me. Johnny's playing it. He'll care. He can be the one
it's its own game, but like it's filled with Elden Ring bosses. Like the exact
that is
bosses.
True.
So like to some extent, it's like you're saying, well, what's that spin-off show they did with Joey from Friends? Sure, it's not Friends.
It's not Friends.
But like, it's...
But without the historical precedent of Friends, it wouldn't even be Joey. It'd be Dude. It'd just be called Guy.
Yes.
Like,
so it's like,
hell? But I get the correction. I
inheritance.
Yeah. Let's see. Sounds exciting, like watching slugs race. Yeah, I mean, admittedly, man.
It is, fair.
Fair. Yeah, fair. Right? There's just not really a way to get around it. It is not a game that appeals from watching it was fun because people are putting stuff together in the same way watching somebody construct an amazing Minecraft location or Roblox, or while they're fighting off pedophiles, that kind of stuff is great. Like you could definitely sorry, it was just a joke. But Roadcraft, Roblox keeps getting shit for that. But it's not the most energizing to watch. I can get that. Flip Cup, $5 super chat. Hoping to stream some this weekend in the Discord of Division. As always, appreciate the content. What's up? Hope you are doing quite well. Yeah, a lot of people doing Division. We'll talk about it a little bit more here in a second. SIU, $2.99 super chat. Any London tips, Johnny? I just moved to Mile End.
Welcome to London. I'm not familiar with Mile End. What I would say, London is great for musicals and shows. So like whether you like music concerts, tons to go there. But for musicals, I would go to the Phantom of the Opera if you like that. They do really well. And then I would also go to the Book of Mormon, which is by the South Park.
Somebody's going to say something, so I just want to make sure.
Mormon.
Mormon sounds like an elder god. The Book of Mormon. I like that better. Let's stick with that. Forget what I said. Yeah, continue.
So from the creators of South Park, and they have amazing music, and they're changing up the cast every time too. So I've gone to see it like 2-3 times with different people, and it's always like a slightly different flavor based on like who's singing, and stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
Did you go to Franklin or whatever that one was called? Lincoln?
No.
Franklin? Abraham?
No.
What was that called? Do you know the one I'm talking about? It was huge about 5-7 years ago, and it had just one word, and it sounded like the name of a president. It was somebody in chat. I know you're going to know it right away. Franklin? No.
Okay.
Let me try to guess.
Damn. I'm blanking right now.
Hamilton.
Oh.
Did you ever go to Hamilton?
Okay. No.
All right. Well, that was a long time for you to say no. Yeah. So, I mean, hey, there we go.
There you go.
Let's see. This is Norb. I'm loving the heck out of it. And I was very skeptical at first. Is that Road Crew or is that Division? Asa says, be right back. Going to catch the Slug Grand Prix. Asa, you need to come on the podcast, man. Fridays. Unfortunately, we're not doing a Wednesday right now, but at some point I got to fix that. But
you know what? It should have been called Road Crew. That's actually...
Did I call it Road Crew again?
Yeah, but I think that's good. That would have been... Because you're not just building roads, it's bridges and other stuff.
Yeah. But Road Crew gets stuck in my head because I am playing Crew. So the new one, the one that's a Forza ripoff, the newest one, not so bad. Man.
Yeah.
Not so bad. Like, hey, they did a good job. And I was the one joking on Twitter saying whoever asked for another Crew game. I'm not saying I asked for it, but I'm playing it. I'm like, hey, that's pretty goddamn sweet. Like, that's not bad at all. Moving on from there, let's look at the first bit of news. Well, Elden Ring, we got the impressions out of the way. Elden Ring has had some issues technically. The 60 FPS is going to be an issue for people. Also, the developer stated, hey, if you have a really good card, there's a high chance you're going to have really big problems with performance. And I was like,
yes,
what the fuck is going on?
That's great. Yeah.
That was great. And great, not in a good way, but just, this is Friday. You just have to be one of those things where you're like, hey, I'm going to step back. And Asa just said, will do, buddy. Just hit me up on Discord. Okay, I'm going to hit you up. You'd actually know I will reach out to you to get you on the podcast, just so you know. So if that's a fake acceptance of the invite next Friday, you guys are going to know.
That's right. Like, we're not British here. We're not being over polite.
Oh, my
you're
God.
Coming.
That's what I was talking about in the Discord a couple days ago, where it's like you meet somebody and you both know that when you say, hey, man, we should catch up, you have this like delineated list of how far down that person is in like your shared excitement of doing things, and they just get popped until they're gone. They're back off the list until you meet them again at a sandwich place somewhere on accident. But Nightreign, I've seen people say it's really fun. It seems like the co-op works generally. Doesn't have any issues,
it works really well. What I would say with randoms, it's not a good experience.
Whoa, what? Wait, what do you mean? Wait, what? I mean, most of the
so you have two modes.
Been random with random.
So you have 3 people or single player. There's no 2 people, which by the way was funny because instantly there's a 2-person mod available for like to duo. So just instantly, which makes sense. Yeah, people wanted that. But either way, so the normal is 3 people, right? Mm-hmm. And single player is really only for like challenge running, like people who are really good already and have figured out the game, because it's very hard. So 3 people.
Okay.
And let's say you have no friends, right? Just like worst case, you're going in, you have 0 friends, you rock up to the game, you press go, it's going to match you up with some people. What's likely going to happen, at least what's happened with me, is been that people are going to different places and you can ping where you want to go.
Right.
But what's been happening to me is that people don't care. They want to, sure, there's a ping on this cathedral that like you're proposing.
Right.
But the random number 1 wants to go to like the cave. Random number 2 wants to, just roam around this general area. And it's very hard to get randoms to actually like
cohesively
agree.
Get together. Okay.
Yeah, cohesively. And then people don't res. I don't know what it is. I think people are just the same thing we had with like Space Marine and these other types of multiplayer games where people sometimes they just don't bother resurrecting allies, and they don't understand that that's a pivotal mechanic. Like if you're not resurrecting people, you will just die. Because the game is balanced around having 3 people actively playing.
What's the bonus for not resurrecting people? What bonus do you
Not
get?
at all. So the way it works, when a friend goes down, you have to hit his corpse. Yes. You have to hit his corpse. And then if you hit it enough...
I've always said it.
Yeah. It will come back.
Love. Yeah.
So what's cool is that if it's close to an enemy, you could do a big ultimate or big AoE spell that hits both the enemies.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and then that would bring him back. That's cool.
Yeah.
And then the more times you die, the harder it is to bring you back, and you need to deal much more DPS to the corpse to bring them back. So that's the dynamic there. Yeah, so if you've died like 3 times, it's going to be really hard to bring you back, for example.
Okay.
But there's no incentive really for not doing it. It's simply that I guess people just can't be asked, you know?
And so do they die then? And so they're paying the price as well? Or have you noticed that they continue
eventually,
on?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No, because they just die.
Is it possible they
really
don't
possible.
know that you have to hit somebody?
You know, it could be.
Possible?
It's like first day, right, for the game, so people are still having a crack. Yes. So I'm sure it will get better. And if you do have like a couple friends, it's pretty great. I only had the chance to play one mission with Silver and Lemon, his friend, our friend Lemon. But that was a lot more quality because we were kind of talking. We didn't know what the heck we were doing, but still, it was a much more fun experience. So that's pretty cool. And what's cool is that every class is wildly different. So unlike Elden Ring, where classes are pretty much like exchangeable, you just have a different starting weapon or something, different stats. This one, the characters have different scaling, but they also just have completely different toolkits altogether, right? So you got your archer, you got your magic users, and then your Unga Bunga people. You got one that has the ability to parry attacks, like Sekiro, where he goes into this mode where you can just parry attacks, and if you do it well enough, you get like a big attack. He transforms into this beast in the ultimate. So every character has got like a passive, regular skill, and then the ultimate skill, which is, you know, some big either damage or utility thing. So there's a really good mix there. And right off the bat, you got, I think it's like 5 or 6 classes, and you can unlock two other classes later as well.
Have they stated anything about changes? Are they adding classes later on, other than the unlocks? Is this a game that they're treating like a mini life service?
We haven't seen anything official for the roadmap, but we know they have plans of adding more stuff. So there's that. We don't know exactly what it's going to be.
I was shocked about an actual mandatory tutorial, Bep says. That's funny. Okay, well, I didn't know that. That's
yes,
cool.
And of course, you die in the tutorial. Like that's... Well, I'm sure you can beat it, technically.
Oh, but it's one of
like
those
the most
tutorials.
Likely outcome. Yeah, the most likely outcome is you're going to die in the tutorial.
Asa says,
which
I am
is the classic
British,
welcome.
But I mean it. LOL. Okay. All right. That is true. That is true. Yeah. You got me on that one. Well, that's cool, man. I mean, the thing with the technical is, and you and I've talked about it, I just wish, okay, I'm not saying I'm the devs. Let's preface that, because I would get on somebody if they said this without prefacing that. I do, though, wish there was a reason, and it was a very clear reason that was known on why there's no DLSS, why there's no FSR, why there's no unlocked on PC. And if it is frame, if it is all this, I have no issue with that. At least you have a reason that is out in the open. Because the silence of having it not there, if what you're saying is what's occurring in the game, is quite easily the quickest way to get what we see on Steam and stuff like that, which is
the
that
review bombing
and stuff
like that.
Because people will pretend they're surprised. They'll be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it," even though you'll see their username 3 weeks prior on a forum saying that they knew it didn't have it, which, by the way, I have done and seen. What's up, Thomas? So. No, that's very cool that they're doing it. I think most likely something like that's probably, especially when you look at how it's done, especially when you look at how that particular engine has handled things, I would assume it has to do with them trying to match every single packet up with every single. And by the way, you stated it is actually pretty seamless and works. So there's the positive there. Hopefully they'll unlock it. Maybe there's also the desire to say, here's a cap, 60 being whatever, but here's a cap. And maybe later in the future, we'll get a cap of 120. But 60 locks everybody into the same thing. It's an older style of doing things, but we have seen it in games before. Yeah. It's not the first time we've seen it. I just don't like it because I do like DLSS or FSR to help somebody with a PC that, you know, maybe they're doing something else, but they still want to play. And, you know, little love from DLSS never hurt anybody, or FSR or XESS or whatever it is.
Yeah, I would have liked to see it there. On the bright side, you know, day one, and I didn't have any issues with connection.
That's awesome.
And and if you do want to like matchmake and look for people, it's pretty instant, which is great too. You press go, you press go and boom, you know, you're in there. And with friends, it's worked great as well.
Yeah. Bep says it's moddable in base game, so I'd say it's not on the priority list. If it's moddable on the base game, this game being a DLC, an expansion that is standalone, that is also based on multiplayer. Sorry, I had to correct myself. I can actually see why you would think that, but on this particular game, when you look at how they're setting things up, I would say it probably is a priority. I can't speak for them, but I did see that they fixed some stuff with Elden Ring, which had some issues when it released. Even had issues. It didn't have as many issues, and then we reviewed it, and it was fine, and then that first patch borked it, and over time, they picked that up. It's never been the most performant of engines, though. I don't think. I've always felt like there's something about that engine that always felt a little, it always, there was always something behind the scenes that you could sort of feel running or doing at any particular time. But that's the way it is. Armored Core 6 launched with a 120 cap. It's a shame they didn't manage to implement a higher cap. What the hell does Armored Core 6 have to do?
I guess just because it's FromSoft.
Oh, yeah, that's not how it works. I get what you're saying, though. Yeah, when you get accustomed to something. I don't even think I'd probably cap it at 120. Probably. I wouldn't cap it any higher. Mine goes to 244 or something, my monitor, but...
Yeah, that type of game, 60 is great, too.
I'll just blink really quick. Anything else for...
what I would say is there isn't a ton of randomness, so just so people manage their expectations.
Really?
If you've played other roguelite games like Hades, Dead Cells, all these types of games that people like, the randomness in those is very high compared to what's in this. Even in the few runs I've done, maybe between 10, 15 runs today. And even just in those, I've already seen a lot of the same stuff in the first day. So it kind of goes through days where every day, the night is encroaching. So you have the circle from Battle Royales. So you drop into the map and then eventually the circle is tightening, and it becomes just the boss arena. And so day one, I've already seen so much similar that I can already tell more or less where I should go, what I should do, to some extent. Not very effectively yet, but that's all to say that's good and bad. It's good because quite quickly you're going to get your bearings, I think, and you're going to start figuring out what's worthwhile doing, what isn't. But then it's also not the greatest for replayability, right? Because if you're seeing a lot of the same stuff very repeatedly, I can also see it getting old.
Yeah, I'm not going to say
so
who,
I'll have to see with more hours. You know what I mean?
I saw. I know some people who have played a lot and and covered it, and I did actually hear the same exact thing last night. Yeah, I was talking to somebody who's covered it, and I was like, "What do you think longevity?" And they're like, "That's actually the one part that I think it's good as an expansion because." Maybe it'll get somebody who played Elden Ring, or didn't play Elden Ring. Maybe they'll like the world and they'll jump in. But for this particular thing, at least currently, there was a lot of repetition as well. Yeah, that person was mentioning that as well. I haven't asked them if it's okay to talk about, so I'm not going to drop their name. But yeah, I would say when it comes down to it, what is it, $40, $50?
I think it was lower. I think it was around $35. Something like that. Yeah.
Thomas Kelly says AC6 having a higher frame cap shows they can work around whatever archaic engine limitations caused older games to be stuck at 30. It's not how development works, buddy. Sorry, not at all. I wish it did because I agree with you, but absolutely is not how it works at all.
Right.
It's unfortunate and it's easy to understand that, but I just when you look at it, you start to see how development works and stuff like that, just because it works in one game, especially depending on how they're putting the game together and what systems they have running. There's some very good GDCs, in particular, GDCs is the Game Developer Conference. If you want to bone up on knowledge about game dev, not only they have development videos that are 3 or 4 hours long, they actually have ones in particular about this. And so you can sort of identify or
it's mind-blowing, by the way. If people haven't seen any GDC talks, the level of depth. I watched one recently. I don't know if you posted it or someone else. It was about audio from Avatar, the game.
Yeah.
And it was insane to me, like the amount of knowledge and like just the amount of stuff behind what we get as a final product, you know, of them like thinking about like the positional audio and everything. And I know it's the same with everything else too, like, you know, graphics. There's just so many layers to this stuff that we only see the final product. I bet in this case, animations really matter. If you're animating a melee thing versus a mech in, you know, Armored Core, like it must be totally different.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. We'll just have to see. That's not excusing them from it. I'm just like, if they could do it, my assumption is they would, you know, unless there's some magical thing they're going to sell you as DLC that gives you 120 frame rate cap, which would be a killer.
But I saw this complaint.
Hang on, I'm not done. The other thing is when you look at, especially when you look at why it's capped now, I think the big thing to point out, for whatever reason this is happening, the information about newer GPUs having issues and more powerful systems having more issues, I think most likely there is a systemic problem that they have currently with this expansion that they're trying to figure out before they make those other jumps. There seems to be something going on there because they went out of their way to tell everybody there was an issue here. You know, your only other opinion or your only other option would be to delay it, which I'm not against either because I don't care about this game as much as everybody else. But I do understand that people wanted to play it. So there's a tit for tat there. No excuse, though. It's just, I don't think an excuse is needed. I think it's just, honestly, if they could do it, my guess is they would. So I think the excuse or the reasoning will come out pretty quickly. I would assume we will start getting patches very fast on that. And my hope is they'll fix it because 60 locked is weird. It's not unknown, but it is weird. What were you going to say?
Yeah, for a PC game, it's pretty rare.
Yeah, it's pretty rare now. Yeah, you get some remakes that are done that way, but those a lot of times are like, there's a very particular reason why we do this, you know, that kind of stuff.
It just came to mind that one common complaint I was seeing in the reviews was that one or two of the characters are locked behind the deluxe edition. And that's not true, technically. It's that you have to unlock those characters through gameplay. And if you buy the deluxe, you have them from the get-go. Or you have one of them from the get-go. So the only difference is that it's kind of like a more advanced class, right? And you can get access to it straight away with the deluxe if you want. So you're not locked out of it, basically.
Omar, what's up, man? I'm assuming you're playing Roadcraft because you're crafting roads, and therefore it's called Roadcraft. That would be my assumption. He's probably destroying something right now, making the entire world a worse place. With this game, I'm glad people are enjoying it, but it's just, for whatever reason, the idea of jumping back in was not my thing, and I felt pretty good passing on this one. The people I had talked to were, who were covering it are not that there's any issue there, but I was like, they know what they're talking about. They'll be able to tell people if it's good, if it's bad, what technical issues there are, that kind of stuff. And I just didn't feel the desire to jump back into an Elden Ring style game right now. I need to pace it a little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes you jump into one of those and you're like, damn. Or coming out of Roadcraft where maybe there's like, 15, 20 hours in a single map. After a while, the idea of jumping into another grind is a little rough. Ziston says, any of you guys tried Tainted Grail? Negative. I saw a little bit of it. No. It looked okay. There was a lot of complaints about it in our Discord. People streaming it having issues technically. In fact, I think everybody stopped streaming it. They did. Yeah, there was that was about 2 days ago, I think, this weekend. There were some people streaming it who were having some kinds of technical issues, and it wasn't just one; it was multiple people having a little bit like Roadcraft, where you had the giant leaves.
Oh, they fixed that.
I know.
Yeah, the giant foliage.
But you had the giant leaves, and Omar had the flashing, and I think both of those have been repaired. So
yeah, that's great.
What's up, Javier? But we'll have to see, man. Good luck to everybody who's playing it. I hope you guys enjoy it regardless, and I hope they patch that 120 in because we can all agree that would be nice to be able to play it at slick, smooth 120 with your, $2,000 video card. right? People are asking what those giant ass melons are on the side of your head.
Yeah, they're fucking giant.
They're fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, they're great. They are a Hi-Fi Man XS edition. You can look that up. They were like pretty good price, and they're good for music and games, and they're very comfortable because I have, guess what? I have like under this, I have giant ears as well. So I need big
You want
cups.
The ones that go,
there
yeah, yeah. You got big balls, need big cup.
Around.
Got big ears, need big cup. It's just, these are things that guys, they're across the line. They're just a man's problem. Wizard of Smoke says Expedition 33 sold 3.3 million in 33 days. Okay, that seems like some kind of weird kismet. 333. Glad that's getting the love well deserved. Metaphor on Game Pass has been a nice treat. And Division 2, Oregon says, "What's up, Spec? $20 super chat, just jumping in to share love. Appreciate y'all. Hope you are doing well as always. One of the few people that makes me feel really, really tired." Spec says he can hear from outer space with those things. I mean, yeah, they're you could get two. I mean, in fact, two plates and glue them to his head, and they'd be small.
Yeah, like sometimes it's so loud that like your voice is coming through the mic, and I have to control that.
And you have to control that
because it's so loud.
Vapor says Tainted Grail for consoles very rough performance-wise. Spec Ops, do you have any cool plans for the weekend? You gonna go do some fun shit, or are you just working? He's working all the time, so I have a feeling he's probably diving into some other project. Javier says, "I'm digging it. However, I'm suffering through the issues." SBZ says, "Can you please write it in chat?" I don't know what he's talking about, but I'm assuming it's your headphones. That would be my assumption. Right?
Yeah.
Is that what he's asking? Or is he asking for like a picture of your ears on Earfan? Just saying. I don't know.
God, I did say they are big.
I know you did. And we talked about cup size. So I'm just saying there's a high chance with this crew that's what's happening. That's what you're being asked for. Let's see. The other topic, EA canceled Black Panther game. So this got confusing really quickly, so I want to point it out. This is not the game with Amy Hennig and the 1942 game or whatever it is. This was a separate one, Cliffhanger Games. So just be aware, it is not the same game. There was some layoffs, 300 or 400 people were gone in April, and they looked at it and they just decided, this was a Seattle-based company. They just decided, hey, we're not doing another Black Panther game. I think when you look at it, they probably make sense, maybe, as a company to only have one Black Panther game. This is just me talking out of box, just like I could see looking at that and going, maybe pre-COVID or something, the idea wasn't as crazy, but now, and with Marvel being a little up and down and, excitement and all that stuff, maybe we just solidify ourselves onto one and we just go with one Black Panther game. But they did state that they had 3 other games, though, and I think at least one other it does have Black Panther in it in some way. So, hey, they like their Black Panther. It's just that particular game, for whatever reason, did not continue going on. But I saw a lot of confusion thinking that was the 1940. I think it's called Black Panther 1942 or something. That's the Captain America Black Panther one, I believe. So it's not the same one. Are you a Black Panther fan?
Not especially, no.
Me neither.
And in fact,
so much.
I feel like the Marvel,
the actor,
no? Yeah, for sure. I like the portrayal and everything about it. I just like the hero itself isn't that interesting. But I like a lot of those movies, but I kind of feel like Marvel is completely lost the momentum. I don't really hear a lot of excitement about Marvel stuff. We see shows pop up and stuff, but just isn't the same when you compare it to those, the Iron Man era and like the height of Avengers with like Infinity Wars and all this stuff.
You know what's funny about that though? Because I do have in-depth, detailed discussions with my friends after we go and we see these, or we've seen them in the past. And I can tell you, even prior to the last 3, there was a tiredness already, because it wasn't necessarily even a tiredness like, oh, we hate them. It's just that there were so many heroes to track. There was all this stuff. And I think that they did it, you could say metaphorically, they blew their load on that. They got everybody they could, and they got the greatest of the great. And in no way, shape, or form do I care if the new ones are good, I'll go watch them. Like, I'm not a person who, the last one was bad, I won't go see this, blah, blah, blah. So I'm excited for whatever they do. I just think, as somebody just said, there's a lot of superheroes. It's the same way with a lot of zombies. However, let me point something out. Every time we say there's a lot of zombies, blah, 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 you get something that comes out that does gangbusters. For example, 28 Years Later is coming soon, and I'm sure that's going to do gang and busters. And what is it? Zombies. Thunderbolts did really well, I believe, sales-wise. I could be wrong on that. Heard Thunderbolts was decent. Brave New World was terrible. I heard Thunderbolts did well. I had heard that Captain America 2, or whatever we're going to call it, was bad, and I went and saw it and actually had no issue with it whatsoever. I didn't love it, but the amount of feedback I got was that it was not going to be good at all. I'd probably want to walk out, and I was like, well, we're going to go. I think it was for Valentine's Day. We went, and I was like, oh, you know what? This wasn't as bad as I thought, but I'm pretty okay. Superhero guys punch people who are villains. What are you going to expect, right? Like, you can't get too much out of it. But I agree with you. Sort of laid back right now when it comes to the talk about it, the excitement.
Yeah.
Superman maybe people will go more towards DC for a while, I don't think so, because Superman to me looks like a fucking disaster, but I'm just talking about the trailers. Like, I will go check it out, but it's like what I saw, I'm like, what in the hell is this? We'll just have to check it out. Spec Ops said, I just watched Punisher Warzone last night. I like the Punisher movies, all of them. I like all the movies. I like the TV show somewhat. But yeah, there's just a lot of stuff, guys, for superheroes. A lot of games, too. We've talked about this before. I think some of the excitement that even I was noticing that I wasn't having for less, at certain times was because there's just a lot. And there's not a focal point right now. Like, GTA would have been a focal point. For example, I don't know if you've noticed this, but Switch 2 hasn't been a focal point. It's weird. In conversations, just be like, so I'll say, are you getting a Switch 2? Oh, yeah. But there's not the,
because it's about to come out, man.
It is.
And we don't hear a lot about it.
It is. And it's just sort of ebbing. We'll have to see what happens upon release, right? Like, that'll be the big news. We're going to get to a couple questions. These are questions from everybody around the world. We've got people pretty much everywhere from, like, I would say from everywhere. At this point, I think I've probably got a question from every single nation or state in the world. It's been pretty nice. These guys don't say where they're from, but these will be from Twitter, Facebook, Telegram, DMs, what have you. Quiznos. Carrick, you seem confident in yourself. I love that, but I have an issue with it personally. Thoughts? Dude, this is something that's always bothered me. Who the fuck else would I have confidence in if it wasn't for me? Like, would you have confidence in a random person you met? Like, I would say, yeah, I definitely have confidence. You have to make sure it doesn't go to ego, which it'll go all the time. But, like, I don't know how to. The only way I would say to give yourself confidence is to find things that you're good at and continually remember that you're good at them and don't get too down on yourself. But if you want to see me, like, be unconfident, watch me try to figure out Linux last month.
I think that's a good way to frame it, because it's like,
I mean, who else?
Sure, if you're talking about video games,
yeah,
dude. I mean, it's in a way, it's like your life's work to learn about the stuff and, like, talk about it in a competent way. If you didn't feel confident doing that would be an issue for you professionally. Like,
it would
that's
be a bit weird. But I will tell you, if a new game comes up, I'll have a lack of confidence for sure. If a new game comes up that's a weird genre or whatever, I will definitely. I study though, like GDCs. I'll be like, okay, I need to study what this is or what that is. But it is a good question, and I would say if you have problems with it personally, you got to find you got to find the stuff you're good at and not forget it, because it's easy. If you're good at 10 things in life and you experience 100 things, that's going to feel like 90% failure rate. That's going to be fucking ridiculous. Like, you're going to be down on yourself. Also, I think if you don't have the vocabulary to discuss your reality, the world is fucking witchcraft. The world is fucking magic. Like, dude, tell me, if you don't have the ability to describe what your problems are or where you're experiencing problems, everything's going to appear like, you're going to appear like somebody in the 1700s who's, like, feels that, the moon is made of cheese. There's everything because you can't even describe what your particular situation is. So the other thing I tell people is to learn terms. I learn them when I'm reading about GDCs and the games where you're like, oh, now I know this term. Now I know this thing. And then if you're having issues, I would say study even your job. You know it, dude. We've been in chat and you've said a term or I've said a term and you're like, I haven't heard it that way before. And then you look that up and then 10 minutes later, you have 5 other words that mean slightly different things in different areas of that particular area, discussion area that you actually might be well versed in. But now you're like, okay, now I have this vocabulary to describe these other things. It's one of the reasons why I have no issue dropping a word that I'll have somebody be like, I don't know what this word is. Why did Carrick drop it in the review? And I'm like, listen, man, I don't know what language skills you have. I'll drop the words I use and know, and the rest is up to you. And I would say that goes to a job. If you want confidence in what you're doing, track everything you do. Find the stuff you're really good at. See if you can branch out slightly. But remember your good shit, people. Like, don't get depressed and just fucking life sucks. If all you're going to do is be like, I failed 90 times today. It's like, well, 10 of those, 10 important things you did really well. Remember those. Don't get too down.
Yeah.
Unless you can't do even those 10 right. Then you're fine. I'm just joking.
Yeah, then try to get good at one thing, because that will be, a good start,
confidence
right?
Building.
Like find one craft like you're developing, and over time you're becoming more confident as a result.
It's very important, I think, to to have that one thing. This is gonna sound weird, Johnny, but we live in a world now where the one thing that a person might be good at is something that wouldn't even be considered a skill 20 years ago. For example, talking about comic books is a podcast, comic historian, millions of subscribers. I don't know if he was, prior to passing away, super talented in this or that or blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's what's great, is that person took a talent and figured out a way to take advantage of what was going on in that particular time frame and turn it into something amazing that isn't a talent in the way you playing guitar or me doing martial arts is. It's awesome. With age, as long as you're accomplishing and failing things and learning to overcome things, you will become confident. I wish I could say I agree with that, but man, there's a lot of people I know who are in their 50s who have no confidence at all. I think confidence is about history and understanding what you're good at. Let's see. Ooh. Okay, I'm going to wait for that one because I didn't know that happened. Well, no, I'll do it right now. So from Rapmasters, Snoop Dogg's 21st studio album, It Is a Crime, touched on political controversy, but largely seemed to avoid deeper commentary. In what ways can artists balance entertainment with political engagement, such as your podcast? So, like, not being political on a podcast, not being... Boy, that's a...
Yeah. I think it's a line you have to decide whether you want to cross. It comes with its pros and cons. I've seen bands cross that line where their music becomes political.
Yeah. Like,
for example, Green Day at some point, crossed that. And for some people, it became too political at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't followed recently to see if they've gone down that route or no, but that's just one example where if your music starts to be a lot about politics, then you might alienate some people who just want, to listen to something for a good time and not really, think about whatever, like civilians being killed, like it's something heavy like that.
Yeah.
And the same with the podcast in a way too, right? Like if we start discussing a lot of these super heavy topics too, it would be different.
Let me get back to that because I have an agreement with that. I want to point out that when I read that, people, I didn't put a comma somewhere. He says, I love that, but I have an issue with it personally. He's saying his own, guys. No, he doesn't have an issue with me. I talk to him all the time. So, dude, when it comes to what you should talk about in a podcast, my personal belief is that whatever the fuck you want, taking into account, you understand whatever ramifications it can allow, it can bring upon you. And then you let the audience decide if that's what they want to listen to. Because otherwise, what controls are you going to have? I mean, and when it comes to politics they come into games in particular areas, but not a huge amount. We talk about them at the end. For example, somebody could consider you and I talking about science political or religious because we don't talk about a religion as much. We talk about science. Somebody would be like, oh, they always talk about science, So, but that's our audience. That particular audience is fine with it. But if I jumped onto an FM radio station in the morning and started up a DJ service and I was like, yeah, so this morning we're going to talk about why evolution is for sure real, you're going to have a different response. It's just, to me, I think it's just all brains. Speaking of lack of brains, though, so Kingmakers, I'm excited for. Kingmakers is the game that you drive around in cars and you go and you fight people in medieval armor and shit. Like, have you seen the previews for this?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So you're driving around like...
dude, in vehicles,
driving into
sniper weapons, taking people out who have swords, everything we all wished as a kid we could do. Take a gun back to a war and see what happened, right? And it's got destruction, it's got all this stuff. I saw a report that came up that stated, I'm not even going to say who this was. I'm not. You guys can guess. But it says the Kingmakers system requirements show that the hardest part of running the game may be finding 80 gigabytes of free space to install. And I got to tell you, what are we doing? Like, that's an article, man. Like, dude, it's going to be quite difficult to find. Quite difficult to right-click delete. That's where we are. That's the level of effort we're at now. We're right-click, deleting your past game and download 80 gigs. 80 gigs? I mean, that's not even near like half as bad as all the other ones we've talked about, which I still don't have an issue with. But the size discussion that's came up with installs is crazy now, man. It's absolutely nuts. Do you consider 80 gigs a lot?
No, not at all. And I mean, where I live, we don't have like limits on downloads and stuff like that. Or pretty rarely we do. So we just don't have that as an issue. I know in some parts of the world, contracts are data limited. So like if you download a game, that maybe means you can't download other stuff later.
Yeah.
But even then, like 80 is not that much, right?
If your service has, let's say, a 100 gig download restriction, you are living, I don't know where, in the middle of the Pacific
that's like
or the Atlantic
years
or
ago
something.
or something.
Yeah, but it's not even to really point that. It's just that 80, so that to me is like in the middle ground now. It's not even in the high middle ground. If I feel like 80 is, it wouldn't even warrant a discussion, But here we are discussing it. It's just because it frustrated me. I figured I'd bring it up. I don't know. It's one of those things. Let's move on. Oh, are you excited for Kingmakers? I am.
Yeah, I think so. It's an awesome concept.
Pure.
It's just like you have to see what the game is like to actually play.
If it doesn't feel like mods, right? Like just a bunch of mods that are thrown together. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Because that could be rough, right? As you start playing it, you're like, oh, okay, it's a little bit of everything just ham-hocked together.
Yeah, and like collision doesn't work, and like it's But yeah, I love the idea.
Yeah, true. All right, Dustin Kilburn, $10 super chat. Enjoying a Friday off. Good for you. Oh, scooting around Lost Odyssey. Damn, Lost Odyssey. That's a 360. Did you ever play that one? No, that was before your time.
No.
360, 4 discs. The premiere, the height of excess in games where the game, it was good, but it was a lot. It was like cutscenes and gameplay that looked like cutscenes because you couldn't do very much, but they smartly put it together, and it was so good. It was that time when you saw a game and you're like, this can't be real. This is like the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He says, got Minority Report going on in the background. I love that movie. I like you already, Dustin. I've liked you this entire time. You're my favorite patron of all time and person who's given money, but I'm just saying, even higher now. Minority Report is great, man. That is an insanely good game. Next up, Hero on Business. Hero on Business. I like Hero on Business even more. That's awesome. Guys, I'm a hero on business. I don't have time for your shit. $10 super chat, just rocking away. Rocking up to say thanks for the podcast. Always enjoy the consistent commentary in gaming. Thank you very much. That's what we like to do. Fighting Dog says Kingmakers should do a collab with Army of Darkness. Riding around as Ash, but turn the enemy to demons. Ooh, that would be good. That's smart. Hero on Business is his new name. I'm sorry. Like I should change his nickname. I love that.
We're sticking with that.
We're sticking with that. Speaking of sticking, let's do none of that and move on. Microsoft halts development of secret Xbox handheld consoles. So if you're part of the Discord, patrons, or watch the Inside podcast, we've talked about this a long time. The Xbox handheld was So OEMs are their big focus. You've got your Samsungs, your other people. The other device was a particular one made by Xbox, and now it sounds like they've stated, we're stepping back and we're going to try to make Windows 11 performance better, but also make it probably work better on handhelds and let the OEMs take care of the rest. I think this is the smartest thing. It's one of the reasons why I've been stating for over a year that OEM was what they were focusing on, because they were. This was sort of still a thing, but not as big of a, I guess, internal project as people assumed. So they did state, or the news did come out from Windows Central. It was Jez who stated they've decided, to sort of pass on doing an Xbox handheld specifically from them. And I personally think if you're going the iPhone style or Android style, they're going more towards Android, where it won't be them. If they made it themselves to be like Apple, they're going more towards the Android route, which is where you're going to have different
third party.
Yeah, you're going to have those OEMs doing it. Dude, exactly. And what's their history? They've already tested this, and they've already worked in that exact area with WMR, where they wrote all the specs up and the other people made them. Some were good. Some were great, actually. Some were not. But I think that's sort of, unfortunately, the way it goes with all the devices. I have a bunch of handhelds, and I can say the same thing. Some are good, and some are
hit
not.
or miss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think? Would you have gone with would you have gone with an Xbox? Let's say a Samsung releases one. Okay, let's do it this way. Samsung, Razer, Lenovo, though there's some overlap there in companies and sub-companies, but let's say they do 3 separate devices and then Xbox has theirs. Would you feel in some way pulled towards getting an Xbox-specific device? Or would you be fine with a Samsung or a Lenovo, and would you look at their, their specific specs? Does it change anything?
I don't think it would, unless there's some value add. So maybe just for being, maybe Microsoft opens up some APIs or, something to streamline playing games in those, like whether it's Game Pass or whatever it may be. That could be cool if it's somehow a bit more straightforward, or it could, maybe they even develop a OS specific to portables, stuff like that. Because I know one of the issues people sometimes have with the Windows portable devices is that it's a bit clunky to navigate Windows in the format of the handheld. So, something a bit more purpose built in terms of OS, I think would be cool. And we see that with the Steam Deck. A lot of people prefer it because of the, it's made for that one purpose, right? It's playing games, their whole OS kind of.
It pops up with Nintendo too. You'll have a bunch of people saying they'd rather play the Switch than an emulated handheld, for whatever reason. It's just, their thing.
Yeah.
So, and then Steam Deck got GeForce Now finally, which I, for some reason, thought they had a long time ago, but that finally came up. I mean, that device is definitely not for me anymore, but on Steam Deck 2 would be nice if they, if they can, I'm assuming all that compatibility just roll into the next one. And then you have all these competitors. The only real issue is what you said. I don't like that. So you have Armory on one device. It's called Armory. You've got, I can't remember, Lenovo Legion. Legion Space, I think, is on the Legion, and I just use Playwright or Playnight, one of the front ends, and it boots straight to it. So mine acts just like a Steam Deck kind of thing. It just boots straight into it, and then you hit a game and it plays. I don't spend a lot of time, to be honest, in my OS on any device, so it's never been an issue for me. I'm like, hit the button, it fucking plays. The one positive with Windows devices is every single thing is compatible, and any hacks I want to do that I did on PC for performance or whatever are directly applicable to those handheld devices, which is a massive boon. If there's a game that's got an issue with performance or something, it's much easier to futz around with.
Yeah, that's a massive advantage, because right now you can't play Game Pass on Steam Deck unless you
still, I thought they got that fixed.
No, I not that I know of, unless you're having your own OS like side loaded or something. You're still limited to the Steam library only.
Yeah, so good news. I don't think we lose anything. I just never thought it was going to be a thing. Like the Xbox specific, it never seemed like it made a lot of sense because in the past they had been doing this for so long. I was just like, why make your own unless you're going to offer 24 months of free Game Pass to get somebody to get your handheld? They can roll that into the other handheld and just
the other thing could be like if developers are testing for that particular hardware. So if there is like a bespoke Xbox, portable, then so maybe you have games that are actually like being tested and aimed at that specific hardware, similar to what Switch 2, we talked about that advantage, right, compared to other portables. The counter to that is that, sorry, go on. You want to say something?
Well, if I would feel like that would distinctly relegate the OEMs then to not being tested. To me, having so I guess you could do one or the other. Xbox is the only one who makes them. Then you do have a very specific boutique device that's just for you and everybody tests for that hardware. But if they were already going to do all three, or sorry, two OEMs as well as themselves, I'm just saying it makes more sense to have OEMs. Like if I had a choice to do both, I'd be like, why are we fighting? Why are we making hardware? Why are we losing money selling hardware when we can just have the companies do it and assist them? That's the problem with Microsoft and problem with all these developers who do that. You got to assist them. But I find like it's just the smartest thing. But I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just like trying to figure out that thought process. I'm sorry. Did I ruin your thought process?
No. I think that's right. And what I was going to say is that even for the Steam Deck, which is, a set device that could in theory be developed towards, we don't see it a ton. We see games try to get the certification where it says like, Steam Deck friendly or whatever the term is, like, runs great on the deck, right? They have the check mark.
Fucking lie.
We've seen that be so variable, right? Where sometimes it's completely unreliable to the point where we know people, they're having a crack at having it run in there, but we know that it's not being prioritized as a platform.
Yeah.
Like in the development cycle, it's not like what's going to be for the Switch, where they're just heavily testing it, making sure it runs well.
Or as well as it can
as well as it can.
The Switch. Yeah.
Right. So that's what I was thinking. I don't know if we would see that dedication, even if we did get a portable from Xbox.
Yeah, I agree. I think altogether, just good. Get them off of that. Let others do the OEM. It's not going to be your main. I mean, they sell some numbers, but none of them have sold like some type of number that you're like, I want to do a native only for this device. That's not what they're made for. And they're like looking at the numbers that you would believe that like they were super high. And then you start looking at sell-through numbers and you're like, oh, damn, that's not high at all. So it just makes more sense. Let Microsoft throw it onto the OEMs. Let them go for it. Figure out the Game Pass situation. Give people like 48 months free of Game Pass if they buy one. Something that feels so, make the purchase so easy, when it comes to the deal that you just are like, okay, I'm for sure doing this. Where it almost makes sense to get it. Listen to this too, Johnny. Let's say a person gets it, they get 48 months. I'm just talking on my ass here, not 48 months, but I'm going to use the number. Let's say the person, 48's a lot. Let's say it's 24 months of Game Pass. A person could get that and be like, I'm not even playing the handheld. I'm just using that Game Pass money and then occasionally playing the handheld. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff that happens if you do a good enough deal. But yeah, it'll be fun to see, man. Who knows? Gaming is up in the air for the devices and all of these kind of things sort of, coming about. Machine XP says, I mean, is it really realistic to expect big AAA games to run on Steam Deck? These Windows handhelds are leap and bounds more powerful. Well, Steam Deck does quite well on its own for the most part. I don't think people expect the Triple S. I think what Johnny and I've noticed and what people in here have noticed is that you'll get the Steam Deck certification, which doesn't mean what you think it means. It doesn't mean it will run at, like, let's say a capped 30 or something, which I think a certification in a lot of people's brains is like, it doesn't just mean the fucking thing boots, right? It means it's actually going to run it.
Well, a lot of the focus when they do the certification, a lot of the focus is
accessibility.
Everything. Yes, accessibility. Is it legible? Can people read everything that's on screen with the screen size we have? Can people navigate menus well? That's a lot of the focus compared to what you might think, which is the performance, like you're talking about. So a lot of times, I think people have that misunderstanding when they see the great on the deck thing. They think like, oh, this is certified to run really well. But we know that even games that have that sometimes don't. Like even weirdly enough, Ori and the Blind Forest ran like ass for me, which is not really a specifically demanding game. So you just can't really predict what's going to run well.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully, they'll get whatever plans they have out and we'll see a Steam Deck 2 at some point. There's always rumors about one coming just tomorrow. There's one headed just tomorrow. There's one headed just tomorrow. There's one headed, and you're always waiting.
Do you think with the Switch 2 that makes it easier or harder for them to like release a Steam Deck 2?
When you see the numbers that Switch sells versus like a Steam Deck plus every Windows handheld combined, you're like, oh, now I understand the difference. It's a tangential side thing right now. And I don't think handhelds for everybody. We just had people in here saying, hey, listen, man, I don't really want to play a handheld. And that's actually one of the places where I've actually been quite interested to see a lot of the people I know who have handhelds, in particular Windows, not Steam Deck almost ever. I don't hear this, but with Windows running it as a device like Plex, where they're running a server docked with their Windows device, and they're using it as a PC in their living room and doing all the stuff they would normally do, and then literally grab it and play whatever games. And I'm like, okay, there's something there, if you like, because I have a mini PC, the little B-Link PC. The small devices are fairly powerful now, which is nice because that ability to, let's say, go on a trip, grab it, plug it in, and say, boom, here we go. Now we've got the ability. And a lot of people I know still do docked on their Switch too. I don't know how much docked I would do if I didn't have to review, but I actually think it would be mostly not docked. That's just my guess on how I would do it. But because I do play a lot when I'm like laying down, hanging out, talking to you guys.
Sure.
But at the same time, now that I have a TV that does screen and picture in picture, maybe there's a higher chance of doing it docked. You had a Switch, right?
Yeah.
Did you
had a Switch.
Did you do docked or handheld?
Yeah, I did mostly undocked, but I think with the new one, given that it's probably going to look a lot better on the 4K screen on the TV, I think that's actually going to be the main way I'm going to play it probably, if it does run well.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting time for handheld. It's going to be an interesting time just for devs because there's so many different pieces of hardware now that they're fighting to get a game to run on, from low-end PC games to low-end Steam Deck hardware to higher-end handhelds to your Xbox, your Series S, X, all that kind of stuff. It's just like, damn, you've got so many different things you have to balance and make sure your game runs well on. The amount of testing has got to be ridiculous for these. Is your Legion Go still your favorite handheld device to use while laying down? Yeah. Legion Go is the Logitech has a wicked good screen. It's super light, but it has those short throw controller, the joysticks, and it's the only thing stopping me from using that more. But yeah, I would say the Legion, now that I've got it the way I want, it's definitely my premier. I'm looking. It's the only one not covered in dust. 1X Player runs a server and does quite well, and I play it occasionally when the Legion's battery goes down or when I want to switch over. But yeah.
Do you have something like the Satisfy that you put around the, or do you just play with the
No, those are quite comfortable on their own. They don't need a Satisfy like the Switch 2. Like the Switch 2, the moment the Switch 2 was even talked about, I was like, I will probably not be playing that without a Satisfy controller on it. Yeah. Just because it's uncomfortable for my meaty hands.
That's what I was thinking when you talked about it. That I don't see myself playing without something like that.
Agreed. Yeah.
For the Switch 2.
I mean, I get it. It's form factor. It's 8 inches though. It's a bigger 7.9 or something. It's a bigger screen, so that'll be probably mean maybe there'll be a tiny bit more room. But it's so hard sometimes to get my thumb down. And Windows devices, some of them have the same thing where you feel like you're playing it like this. You're like, why is the right thumbstick so low? Like, could you guys move some buttons around or something? You know, they always want to put the buttons on the face because these guys are so copycatish. Everybody, Steam Deck, they're all guilty of the one thing that disturbs me to no end. They pretend like they're like, look at the innovation, look at us. And then they have buttons that look just like an Xbox or PlayStation 5 controller where they are. And I'm like, listen, man, we're at a time, Legion has the back buttons, got a couple, we're at a time where we could maybe move some of this around, put the speakers up to the side of the screen and not facing straight up or into my palm. No lie, half of the handhelds, the music plays into the fat of your palm. And you're like, who fucking designed this piece of shit? Like, what are we doing? Switch them around. Yeah. People who are going to buy those things will be able to adapt to that thing. It's not going to kill you. Moving on from there, we got another question. Then we'll go to a tweet I thought was funny. I want to hear. We'll go to a couple tweets. This week has been tweet heavy, by the way. Got Randy Pitchford and another one that I thought was interesting. Let's see. Carrick, quantum computing descriptions confuse me. The whole a bit normally is 1 or 0, but now it's not. You have unique ways of describing things I love from your reviews. Every Friday, I tune in for some science talk. Give me a description. Reward is I will become a patron. I feel like I'm tap dancing for somebody. I feel like now I don't want to answer. How about this? Your reward is this. Don't become a patron for that. But if you like the description, say so. Okay. All right. I think I understand what he's talking about. And you and I have talked about this with sometimes it breaks your mind with like quantum computing versus normal. So think about it like this.
Yeah.
Normal computing would be a bit inside of a diamond. That bit is a 1 or a 0. And inside the diamond, that 1 or a 0 is sort of shot with a laser. You figure out where is it, 1 or a 0. With quantum, if you think about it where you can still see the diamond, but you're zoomed out just a tiny bit. And on the diamond, ignoring 1s and 0s for a second, because I think that's what confuses people. Let's do something like this. On the outside of the diamond, you have other descriptors that you might use that are mini-maxed. Black and white, up or down, left or right. They all mean 1 or a 0, but currently let's use words because it makes more sense. So you have a 1 or a 0 in the center, but on the left and right, you have up, down, right, left. You have bittersweet, whatever you want to use, white, black, A, and Z. And then what happens is when you're using the quantum computer, it can read all that data at once. So instead of a laser reading the 1 bit, think of it like a camera reading the entire diamond. And all of those are translated instantly to 1s and 0s as well. So it's like a sandwich. So you see the 1 and 0 that you would normally see, but behind it, there's a layer of other 1s and 0s that are infinite around the edge of the diamond, which is why it's also a good descriptor for multiple universes in the idea that with science and research and formulas, we occasionally see indications along the edge of the diamond of those other words, of those other things. And by using science, we can sort of figure out, hey, there seems to be something over here. In a weird way, quantum, especially when you look at how computing is done, is sort of like that. So what happens is you're able to get more information for every single bit because the bit can be in multiple states, not just the 1 or the 0. It's not a perfect descriptor, but I think that's going to be close enough for somebody like yourself, because I do know that when we look at it, and you tell somebody it's a 1 or a 0, but it can be in different states, it's not just a 1 or a 0. People are like, but you just said it was a 1 or a 0. And that sort of breaks down.
Yeah.
The other thing I think is if you start going numbers, I heard somebody describe it as what if it's not 1 or a 0, but it's like 1.1, 1.2. Well, numbers are infinite, so that can be a little confusing. So I think overall, if you consider it like a diamond, and that diamond has that information on the outside, and at any time you can sort of stamp that data and you can do your computation. Those words are translated back to 1s and 0s, and you can get more computing power. Now, here's what's cool. Let's see if this worked. I transcribe our podcasts, and I have had ChatGPT and Gemini draw a picture of what I just described.
Ooh.
So let me see. It's taking a moment. It's going to draw a picture, and we're going to see if this worked.
Damn. Okay. In real time?
In real time. Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to do this because sometimes we describe weird shit. Like, what would happen if a dolphin and a goat became an evil creature? So there we go. Stage 1, classical bit. Stage 2, quantum bit. Stage 3, processor bit with it worked. Damn, it worked well. So there we go. There's the description. I'm going to cover Johnny for a second. Sorry, Johnny. I love you. There we go. Classical zoomed in, only seeing the core bit. Zoom out, side bits, stage 3 processing, all data simultaneously. There you go. Boom. In real time. So, picture drawn. HTML
would it
done.
be fair to say that every bit is like Schrodinger's cat situation?
Yeah, you don't know.
Except it's like a cloud of probability.
Yeah.
Like, and the computer is able to sort of like branch out all the different universes where, like, you know, this particular cat is alive or dead. And it's kind of like, you know, it's just generating all these branches, right? In its space.
Yeah. I mean, and by the way, that's HTML. So if anybody's like, oh my God, that's copying somebody's art, it's not. That's fucking literally having well, you could say if you go all the way back that the large language model was definitely trained on me as well, because I found my data in there, but it was trained on all of us. It wrote the HTML, which is super fast now. So I wanted to see if it could take our real time and not break my API. And see if I
That's
could.
That's insane, man.
So that drew up what I said. It worked quite well, and hopefully that explains it to you. There's, it's not going to be perfect, but there you go.
Yeah.
All right, moving on from there, let's discuss Atomfall, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Fall. It's already got story DLC called Wicked Island coming out. Those guys, the success, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I guess I just didn't. I think I knew it had DLC coming, but I guess I forgot. But it looks like it's
that's
close.
Quick too.
That's quick.
That's quick for a DLC. Yeah.
Smart too, right? It's still on the edge of being talked about. Like Atomfall just released another DLC like 4 or 5 months ago. But that game's been out for a year and a half or 2 years. You know what I mean? So it doesn't feel as close.
You mean Atomic Hearts?
Atomic Heart. Thank you.
Yeah. No, because I get it confused too. Yeah. Like similar.
But isn't that really cool?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, that's awesome.
Seeing the success from them and seeing them do that. Has anybody in chat played Atomfall? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Like what? And what about Atomic Heart? I would also like to know if any of you guys did Atomic Heart.
Yeah.
If you've liked that. Did you do? You played a little bit of Atomfall, I believe.
No, I didn't actually. I didn't get into it.
Didn't get into it. What about Atomic Heart?
Atomic Heart, I played the base game. I really liked the base game.
Okay, gotcha.
I didn't go into the DLC, neither of them.
Dying Light is the same way. Dead Island is the same way, where they do that DLC, but it almost feels like they know it's just for fans. They would love to have more people go into it, obviously. But it's hard to get PR to talk about DLC for a game that's 2 years old. It's one of the reasons why I did the Dead Island 2 DLC, because I was just like, listen, I would love to cover it. I like the game, and DLC is so hard to review. This would be absolutely awesome if we could get some.
You don't have a lot of channels covering DLC ever. Like it's very, very rare.
Maybe if they're a specific DLC, or specific games channel, might be.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't seen like a channel that their thing is covering DLCs. That could be a cool. I think you always suggest that as a niche, don't you?
I do.
Like cover DLCs or...
It's a niche that I can tell you right now I'm not good enough to do. I don't know how to go about it, but I'm telling you, if there is a channel that can figure out good time, you would need a schedule, and it would need to be rock solid, because you would have to bone up on the old game. But if you could figure out a way to cover the DLCs for just 4 or 5 main games religiously, where people knew you were going to cover it. And I've looked at this, and I'm trying to do it because I love that idea, but trying to fit returning to the old game that's a year and a half out, so that you're good at it and you don't look like an idiot when you're playing the DLC. That is a niche that no one has on YouTube at all. It's just not really known about. There's a couple that have tried, but they drop off because it's just, there's a lot.
Just as an example, like Lies of P has a big DLC, right? Coming out.
It does, yeah.
So it's like, for you to be at the skill level of, let's say, like end game bosses in that game, you need some hours, right, to
Yes.
get back to that level. You don't just go back in. Even if you're playing similar games, like the timing of everything is going to be completely different. You have to get used to all the systems again. And a lot of these DLCs pick up at the later stages of the game where the difficulty is at or higher than like end game bosses,
I mean, Outer Worlds had it. We've talked about this before, but a lot of these games, Surge 2 was the one you and I both, I think, experienced where we were like, oh, damn, it's, we haven't played it in a while. And here we go, where it's higher than we would like to be able to jump right in and, without some caring about how well you play, I guess. If you didn't
or dude, if you had to play most of the base game, like someone is saying in chat,
20, 30
if you had to,
levels.
Yeah. Just to get to it, because, maybe you started New Game Plus and now you don't have the save for like end game.
So I would tell everybody in here, if you haven't played Atomic Heart or Atomfall, I think they're both quite well worth it, with Atomfall being on Game Pass. And I don't know if Atomic Heart is still on Game Pass. It was Game Pass day one, if I remember right.
Yeah, it was.
So, yeah. Moving on from there, let's talk about bad tweets. Let's just get it out of the way. I talked about it a little bit on the podcast, the side podcast, but so Randy.
Does he have good ones? Because I feel like every time we talk about him, he's put his foot in his mouth.
Yeah, so Randy Pitchford, there were people talking about the price, and he's like, listen, if you're a true fan, you will figure out a way to get the $80 if it is 80. And he said, I don't have any choice in this. So here's the problem. You alienate pretty quickly by saying if you're a true fan. You also, I don't, by the way, I don't care at all about him talking about the money. I heard people saying you're shaming people with no money. No, like, we're not even going there. It's just like, that puts way too much, I would say, thought on him, and the assumption or anything like he wouldn't break it tomorrow. That's just not his way. He just says what he says. But as a CEO, the response, or the main lead, whatever he is, the response, it hits different. And so when he says something like that, dude, the guys at the office must just be like, would you shut the fuck up? Would somebody drive to his house and break his fucking phone, please? Because then he posted later and said, I didn't mean to trigger people. Now, listen, okay. Trigger's a trigger word. Can we agree on that? If you came to me and I said, Johnny, you're triggered, that's like saying, Johnny, cool down. You're going to want to throw fucking mitts.
And,
you're going to be
we
like,
know how well it works when you tell someone to calm down.
Tell somebody, hey, chill out, man. You're like, dude, don't ever, like, you know what I mean? Because it negates whatever is going on. So he's like, hey, I didn't mean to trigger fans, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, dude, I get it. I get it. Like, what he's talking about is stuff we have joked about working really hard for a game. But it is from him. He's got a history of it. That's one thing. Number two, it's sort of the way it was delivered. And number three, if you don't know the price, if he truly doesn't know the price, I wouldn't if I was him, I wouldn't respond to that tweet at all. Because you've already stated before you don't know the price. So why defend it as if it's 80? Because I bet you the number of people who read that tweet. Oh, you still there? You still there?
Yeah, I can hear you.
That was my 4090 doing the NVIDIA driver drop. It did the NVIDIA black screen. It works, though. What it does is it causes people to look at it and say, hey, it's going to be 80. And I think that's a problem. There we go. We're back. Well, my NVIDIA doesn't like this. I didn't upgrade. I didn't update the new driver either, because people already reported they were having issues with their NVIDIAs. We'll have to see if that continues. But anyway, long story short, I don't know why I'm talking quietly, like magically I'm going to stop it from happening. But anyway.
Yeah, it's like,
what do you think? Do you think, oh shit, it just did it again, Johnny?
Oh.
Okay, keep talking. I'm going to go do something. Hopefully, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to go unplug all my other monitors, because I run a dual monitor system and a monitor somewhere else. So it's going to freeze again.
Damn, Carrick is gone.
Here we go.
All right, chat.
Here we go. Okay. So I unplugged.
Nice.
I'm going to turn off this one. Yeah, dude, that is the NVIDIA driver at work, man. That thing has been rough for me lately with the black screens going off all the time. So I've unplugged
I had
everything.
that today too, as well.
Did you?
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Machine XP says I haven't updated my NVIDIA driver the last few because of these whacked out driver updates.
Yeah, lately it's been pretty bad for
pretty
drivers.
Edgy for drivers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully I unplugged everything. That is very normal for the 4090 series. A little less with this driver, but it still caused issues in the past. So we should be good to go. But anyway, what do you think about? Do you think like he should hire somebody and just have that person just be like, "Good morning, everybody," every day, and just?
Oh yeah.
Like
I think after the first terrible tweet, someone should have stopped by his office, like, "Hey, Randy, we need to have a conversation here. You're forbidden from from tweeting. You're not equipped." Yeah.
Well, this also happened. This happened yesterday. Yuri Lowenthal, who is Spider-Man, but he was also in Persona 4, I believe. He posted on Instagram, said, "For those asking, no, I won't be returning to work on Persona 4 Remake. But Persona 4 Remake has not been announced." So that tweet went out, and then within an hour, that tweet got deleted. So now there's like discussion of, did he get in trouble? Is it a PR stunt? Did he pull what's his name from Spider-Man? The actor who plays Spider-Man, who leaked everything for Marvel all the time. Tom Holland, right? Is that his name? Tom Holland? Yeah.
Oh yeah. In interviews and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, so he stated that it got deleted. I went and checked the tweets. His content, his comment on this is over. But I would say this week was a bad look for a lot of people on tweets. It's just not a time to tweet. Maybe you should just step back. Human brain isn't prepared for this much input and output anyway. He was probably getting asked a bunch maybe and thought it was announced or something. And since he wasn't working on it, he didn't know. I don't really know how you would accidentally tweet that, but there you go. Are you going to get a Persona 4 remake?
Depends on the remake. There's like remakes and remakes, whether it's the latter or the former. Yeah, and the difference between them, a remaster and a remake. We were having this discussion yesterday in chat, and for some reason somebody got heated. I have no clue why still to this date, but who gives a shit? But we were in there talking, and we were looking at like how far a remaster goes to become a remake. Like how far do we go? Is everything remade to be a remake? Is that how we're going to do it? Because you have games like Oblivion that is another engine on top of an engine. And they did changes to some of the way the systems work and stuff like that. So you're like, ooh, where is that? Where are we with these? I think personally, it probably makes no sense to worry about describing it. Yeah. Remakering, I call it reimagining because we're getting to the point to where you're reimagining almost. You're almost making a game, remastering your nostalgia versus remaking the game, I guess. Yeah, it's a weird one. What do you think is the best remake or remaster you've ever seen, Johnny? Best one? Probably Final Fantasy VII.
Damn. That's a better answer than I had.
It's damn good, right? Yeah.
And that's a whole other thing. But there you go, right? Remake for sure, but it is a reimagining of a shit ton of the steps.
Full reimagine. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's a good, dude, that's a really good, damn it. That's a good answer. So my answer was going to be like Persona. No, I was going to say it can't be Royale because that's not a remake. Dead Space is good. That got brought up, that the Dead Space remake was good. Yeah, that's
true. It was really good too.
But I feel like, okay, here we go. Wild One says Resident Evil 2. See, that one was really good.
Yes. A lot of those 4 was fantastic.
They were great, man.
I think that they were very faithful in a way, weren't they?
Very.
So that's a good thing for like the people who love the originals.
But they were faithful in a way that it wasn't dogmatic. Like
yes, they did innovate
Roadcraft.
and they made it a lot more fun and everything. So that's awesome. But I feel like there's a new level with Final Fantasy VII where it's completely different and so many new gameplay layers to it that didn't have to be there. When you look at it, a lot of the mini games and stuff,
that's true.
It's just new stuff.
Yeah, it's new. Like we live in weird times where it's not just quality of life. It's not just making sure it works. It can be if you do a cheaper price, but if you do a generically middle or high end price, like your 50 or 60, people are expecting pretty high level, I think, which is fair. Let's see. I think Dead Space was still good when it was old. Oh, you mean like with no remake? Yeah, Dead Space. I think Dead Space was generally a good. It had some issues with controls and stuff. I thought they touched up, but I mean overall, it's still Resident Evil 2. I still actually think might be my answer. That was a really good one.
Yeah, it was really
3,
good.
Less so.
Yeah, 3 less so. 4 was really good though. So I think still, and Village was pretty good too. So their level is quite good. Well, Village was not a remake, so what am I talking about?
No, Village wasn't a remake. Though I will say that I felt like at times Village was very let's channel 7 again kind of thing. That's just sort of how it felt. The problem, this is Machine. He says the problem is remasters used to be straight up port-like releases with upscaled resolutions, but still had bad textures. Yeah, sometimes they didn't have upscaled resolutions. There were remasters and remakes that were literally just it runs on the new version of Windows. And I mean, what are we going to call the Switch ones? Where, I mean,
the new version.
The new versions of some of those come really close to what I'm describing right now, which is runs on the new system, and we're calling it a remake. It's to me that's just a straight port, right? Like you can port to a future system. I just feel like those are just ports. If it runs on you have to change some stuff, but it runs on your Switch too, and it doesn't do anything else. Remake. It's not a remake or even a remaster. No. It's just here's your port of your older game. It's an interesting one. Looking at my chart here, I said the best. I asked docked or undocked for handhelds. 60% said docked. What's even better is our fans are smart. I forgot to put in docked or undocked. I put yes or no, but they knew what yes meant, which was docked. I appreciate that, guys. You guys are good. Good people. Let's see. What else do we got? What do you got on the list there, Johnny, inside of Discordian?
So one thing that popped up is some extra details about the Switch 2. This was from someone who got like hands-on and they did a video and they shared some details we didn't know. For example, 232 gigabytes of usable internal storage.
232 gigabytes of usable installable storage, not taken by the system. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So that seems really good, right? Isn't that a lot more than PS5? Or am I...
PS5's like 1 terabyte minus 150 for system or something like that.
Okay, I wasn't even close.
Maybe it's 500 minus 120 for system, but it's definitely not that. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So that, I don't know, like Nintendo games, they're not as massive, maybe. But then again, you have the third-party ones. So you might still be looking at 3-4 games if you have like Cyberpunk and stuff like that.
Cyberpunk looks pretty good to me as a, like to see what they can do kind of thing. What else we got for new data?
The other thing there, so display and audio options include support for 4K resolution, HDR, 120 hertz output, and auto low latency mode, which is apparently just, for smoother gameplay, along with 5.1 surround sound support. And then the other thing, screen burn-in reduction option. So this would be like a mode for the screen.
For the plugged-in screen.
I'm assuming. It doesn't state. but that's what I'm assuming.
Okay.
Otherwise,
I don't think it's needed on that screen. But continue.
Right. That's pretty much it. The other smaller stuff, like some microphone features and stuff like that.
And it's doing voice to text, right? Am I crazy on that, or didn't they state that it's going to have support for voice to text for multiplayer games, so you don't have to?
Oh.
You don't have to use your mic if you want to do some multiplayer games.
That would be cool.
I thought I saw something like that. Yeah. I mean, that's probably fine size-wise for that thing. I'd like it to be 500 minus system OS size, so 420. I mean, they're all digital game. Not all. Sorry, I take that back. Many of the games I will be getting on the Switch 2 will be digital, so therefore I'm going to eat that space up pretty quickly.
I think so. And even the ones that are like physical, you still have to...
Yeah, they're still installing on.
Install, right?
Yeah. I asked the question, are Switch 1 games running with no changes on Switch 2 just a port? And yeah, we all agree. Eternal says PS5 supports ALLM2, but like VRR, you need a display with 2.1. Yep, auto low latency is pretty normal, but for a Switch, obviously, it'd be nice to just have it, not have to worry about one extra thing. I think auto low latency, I really haven't had any issues with it on the console. It's generally worked without any, odd frame stutters or anything like that, because it's built into the Xbox. I can't remember if it was built. I think with the PlayStation, I could be wrong, so correct me, but I'm pretty sure on the PlayStation that was a latecomer in the options. I know PlayStation 5 had some late options that got patched in. It took them a lot longer for VRR, I think, as well. I could be wrong on that. I don't think I am. I think they have been late on a couple things. Like, for whatever reason, their system does stuff slightly different, and it's taken a little bit longer. Anything else there in chat?
Yes, we had some stuff in Discord. Here we go. Okay. So, Kel says, I'm curious what your thoughts are about the recent ruling in Epic versus Apple and what the implications might be going forward. He has a link here.
And I believe that's that they were forced, that Apple is now forced to have Epic and Xbox stuff on their store. And that sort of went through.
So Apple counterclaims that Epic Games has breached its developer agreements and App Store guidelines by introducing a direct pay option on iOS devices. So for people who didn't know about the issue, Fortnite got removed from the Apple Store, right? And I think this thing was, they were trying to get it back, basically.
And Microsoft hasn't been able to be on there because I believe, and admittedly, this was years ago when this first came up and I stopped following it, but I believe you can't do a store within a store. And that's the big problem. So like Xbox Game Pass, because they want, Apple wants a cut of every single thing that goes on. And so I think it has something to do along the lines of that. But if I'm wrong, correct me, chat. But I'm pretty sure that's what it is in general. And then all the other stuff of just big companies fighting each other.
Yes.
Like, yeah, that's Thomas just said it perfectly. Apple versus Epic will be a lifelong beef. I think it will. I think Apple versus Microsoft is a longer one because they've been around 20 years longer than Epic hasn't. Their beef never went down. Yeah.
So Apple doesn't like that people are paying directly in the game and not through the store, right?
It's not a game. It's a storefront in a storefront. Like Game Pass is a storefront.
Yeah.
Like 4 games. And I think some of their stuff was around that, if I remember right. Which makes some sense.
Makes sense. They want a cut of the action. Yeah.
So here's the thing too, is there were all kinds of complaints back and forth of like Apple's dragging their feet on purpose to screw somebody over, blah, blah, blah. It's like the back and forth. Everybody's like sort of going back and forth saying, okay, we're going to let you on. Oh, but you broke a developer contract or whatever. So now you're not on anymore. So I don't know. I feel like we're going to be fighting this forever. We're just, it doesn't seem like it's going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah.
Especially Epic, man. Fortnite money. Apple wants a piece for sure, right?
Yeah.
Like if I was Apple, I'd want a piece.
Oh,
I'm not, I mean, if you're going to be on my store, I'd be like, yeah, I want to.
It's like the mafia. If you have a really profitable store in my,
somebody's going to show up to talk about sausages and slipping on linoleum floors, and you're going to be like, I actually know what's being talked about. I've seen the movies, buddy. I know what's happening.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you have a slippery part on your linoleum floor. Sure. Okay. You can have 20%. It's like, no, I don't want your money. They want the cut, and the court says they don't have the right to do that. U.S. government was never for us always scheming. Yeah. It's quite literally a government, but technically this really isn't as much government as it is 2-3 storefronts battling it out. It really wouldn't matter what nation it's in. It's just one of those problems. But it's never really about the sausages. That is true. It is never really about the sausages. It's sausages all the way down, man.
That's the pretext.
Yeah, it's what's in the sausage, right? You never want to see how it gets made. Here we are. Everybody seems to be chasing that live service cash cow, but very few successful long term. Yeah. I mean, it's billions of dollars. They're going to continue to try until they either go out of business or crack it. They all want, what's the game? The gotcha game? They all want that kind of money. The $3 billion every 3 months or whatever it is. Can't remember the original one.
Yeah.
That became so popular with all the anime characters. But
Genshin
Impact, yeah.
Yeah.
Damn. That game just gangbusters. Or you look up online how good a mobile company does in 3 months or whatever.
Oh, yeah, dude. It's bananas.
Yeah.
The money spent.
Can you imagine if you were like a small developer and somehow you captured that zeitgeist and you're sitting back, you're checking your Google Play account for your money, you're hoping that 500 people downloaded it, and it's like 5 million people have downloaded it. What the fuck? Gotta hire somebody. I'd be like on the phone to you and Reg going, dude, let's do this. What else we got?
This one from Knucklehead. Is there a niche that isn't covered at all or very little on YouTube that you would like to see more coverage for? Doesn't have to be gaming related, or the inverse. Is there a niche that you've found great coverage for on the platform? Yeah.
That's a good question. So it doesn't have to be gaming related. Is there like a place that maybe you look for data and you don't find it as much as you thought you would on YouTube? That's a really good question. Do you have any? Something that you've looked up on YouTube?
I have something general that I've always wanted. It's also the reason why I started my new channel about League, which is we see a lot of channels where people are extremely competent and talented at what they do, and we get to watch that. I love some of those rabbit holes myself, but what we don't see a lot of the time is someone going through the journey of acquiring a new skill. And I love that as an idea. That is the idea of my channel, which is like I started pretty low rank.
Right.
And I'm kind of
learning porn instead of competence porn.
Yes. So yes, exactly. So being a learner, what is your skill set to become good at something? What is your process? Right. And I love that idea. That's what I'm trying to my channel, but I would love to see it in other things, like someone trying to pick up carpentry, right? And they know, like they're doing their research, they know all the strategies, but they have to learn the execution and the craft. It's just like watching someone go through that process.
I would say people probably assume that a walkthrough may be that, but I think with walkthroughs, even walkthroughs are cultivated now. A lot of times you'll see cuts as they try to move forward. And sometimes you're like, well, how long did that take? And a lot of people are very good about it. They'll be like 30 hours later. I don't know how much somebody would want to watch a 30-hour failure at Counter-Strike 2, but there's people out there that would, and that is a niche. I think that's a good point. Yeah. Because they just don't want you to see them because you would be known as a failure. The feedback would be poor, and I think that would probably bother people.
And to be fair, I think a lot of people would tune out of the video when they see the person isn't skilled at it.
Right.
But to me, that is the juice. I love seeing someone What is the process to get there? Because a lot of people, what they do in the walkthroughs is that they say, dude, if you just watch this video, you're going to be able to do this. And that's just not true for pretty much everything.
Right.
You might know what the reference points are. You might do a lot of research and know all the theory, but you need to actually then practice the craft, right? Like you need the repetitions. You need to observe and correct as you go and everything. And that, I think that's a beautiful process. I love seeing that someone achieve, competency over time. But as you say, maybe that's just not sexy, right?
Well, it's not that it's not sexy. YouTube has now enough viewers, I think, that you could get some people watching, and you would have to play into it, like failure state. Call your channel failure state, and it's like because, for example, all you're really describing in a way is Dirty Jobs, where he had a day to learn the new skill, the new job, right?
Yes.
So you're describing Dirty Jobs, but as a YouTube sort of channel that escalates that into like a 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that works quite well. What I was saying was the person would have to be psychologically prepared for the number of people to tell them that they suck beyond all belief. And that would be 100%. Something that you would really have to set somebody down. And by the way, you were talking about learning and watching something. Ask anybody who ever, maybe my age, maybe 20 years ago, trying to learn a martial art via watching it. They used to sell martial art tapes to people and regurgitate this business, and you would pay great deals of money. And what does that mean? That means you definitely could pick up technique and understand what somebody was doing, but it's not the same as physically doing it with somebody in front of you. Or that's why somebody who hasn't fought before but knows a martial art may end up getting, and most often 99% of the time gets crushed, because sure, you can do something on your own against a bag or sparring, but if you're in a life and death situation, things change, that kind of stuff. So what you're talking about is awesome. I love the idea of it. I just the person would have to be prepped. You would quite literally have to have a support system in place so that a year of it, because what you feel okay with day 1, Johnny, that ain't the fucking same as day 256, right?
Yeah. Still suck at it.
Still sucking.
Let's go.
Failure State Gaming, episode 66, just as bad as number 2. And you'd be like, damn. I like the idea. For me, I would say for games in particular, there's not necessarily a particular niche other than DLC. I would say one that's oversaturated, and it's oversaturated everywhere now, is gaming news. And that's just because it's just saturated. It's like there are so many, and news isn't the same as factual reporting. News is, you can, whether you do opinion or whether you just regurgitate facts, it is oversaturated as hell. And even when we have journalists who are losing jobs and websites shutting down, the reason why a lot of people don't notice, unless you're a fan of them, is because there's a billion channels reporting news, because it's the easier of the things to do is to report news and, that kind of stuff. I would say that one I've noticed, especially even like Yong, who I used to talk to a lot when he was doing it. He's doing his own stuff with like voice acting and stuff like that. But even when he was doing it alone, there were these channels that were popping up, pretty quickly, trying to like figure out a way to do a little bit more. I think that space is pretty filled because Twitter alone has gaming news.
Yeah.
Right? There isn't, you just pop up and it's like, boom, AI summaries are now a big thing. I mean, the number of people I know right now who use AI summaries for a YouTube news video is climbing by the day. And we're starting to see, websites stating, oh shit, right-clicking and having AI tell you what the general points are in a video. You don't have to worry too much about hallucination at that point, because it's really just taking whatever they've saying, popping it up and saying, this game's canceled, this game's blah, blah, blah. That's a rough spot. And it's got a cap. I would say a place that there's a niche is DLC. And okay, here's another one. Like you said, so you were talking about learning over time. I would say like Happy Console Gamer, who I really like, trying to stay positive and just cover what you like. Metal Jesus Rocks is very, very good He seems to be pretty ironclad. It may be his age and because he ran a store and all that stuff, but he seems to be very ironclad in the ability to just continue to talk about what he wants to talk about and what he likes without, letting people be like, I can't believe you like this ancient N64 game. He seems to be able to handle that. So yeah, that would be hard to do now. Unless you just put a team together and just said, I'm just going to cover anything I like. And then your personality pays off, and his does. His personality is very good. It's hard. What outside of gaming? Sports is talked about all the time. There's just no gaps. I think, in all honesty, guys, the gaps, to answer that question even more, it's not on YouTube. I don't think the gap is YouTube. I think the gap is outside of YouTube. I think YouTube is coming very close to being saturated to the point to where just getting who you like is very difficult. I like Kyle Hill. If I don't watch Kyle Hill's video within an hour, it will be buried.
It's gone from the home.
Buried. A couple days ago, we all did a search for Kyle's last video, and I was like, I watch him pretty religiously. I didn't watch a video, and he was like 45 down in my algorithm, and some of it wasn't even really connected to the search I did. And I didn't do Kyle Hill because that wouldn't be a fair search. He would show up. I'm talking about just a search on that specific subject.
Yeah.
Very cool. Good question. What else we got?
Okay. Next question from... Let me just make sure I'm on the right thread here. This one from Dry Cereal. That's a good nick.
That is.
Do you do dry cereal, like without
for a
milk?
Snack?
Yeah,
rarely. But that's because I like granola, which is really tough on your teeth anyway. So dry, that'd be like you might as well just grab some sand and throw it in your fucking mouth,
man.
Dude. Just like
you need to wash that down.
Yeah. You need a little bit of milk to crack up that granola. But yeah, I'll do dry cereal very occasionally.
Yeah. He says. People are understandably upset about increases in game prices. I'm not excited about it either. That being said, I think that gaming represents one of the best values in entertainment and could be undervalued. With all that being said, are there any games that you can look back on and say, I got way more than $100 worth of value out of that game?
Thousands.
Yeah.
Does it mean so they by the way, and you know this because we talk about this all the time, something can be right on both sides. And did I get more than 100? Thousands. Would I pay 100 day one for that same game knowing that? No. There's a big difference between having that amount of money and being able to make a one-off purchase, or over a particular amount of time getting the output from it that's worth $100. There are massive differences. They're not even, I mean, they're almost different sides of a coin that once you start looking at it, one psychology and time later. What if I could have got 100 out of it, so I bought it, but then didn't because other games came up? Like, there's all kinds of weird shit. But yeah, thousands of games I've got over $100 worth of value. Haven't you? I mean,
oh yeah.
Take value at $5 an hour. Let's say that's really low, by the way. But let's say it's $5 an hour for a game, dude. Yeah, 10 hours being $50, maybe? Then suddenly you're at 12 hours, dude. For sure. But it's not the same as saying I would go and buy the fucking thing for $200 or whatever it was worth at the end.
Yeah, when you look in hindsight, you got that value out of it, but that doesn't mean that if you were presented with the proposition of paying all that value, you would say yes. I think we can hold those two.
They're separate sides. And one takes investment in time and the money, and the other is a breadcrumb of past moments directly to the spot to where you bought it. One's far easier to guess on because you just look back and go, I remember that day, but you can't look forward and say, I'll for sure have the time. So the initial purchase needs to be edible for a gamer. It needs to be acceptable. I don't know, man.
And part of the selling point is also that you're getting a lot for your money, right? So if it felt like you're just barely getting the game's price in terms of value return, that would actually not be that good of a deal. But if I paid, let's just give an example. I paid like $30 for the Shadow of the Earth Tree expansion for Elden Ring, and I spent like 50, 60 hours in it, had a blast, beat everything in it, loved it. That to me is like 5 or 10 times the value of what I paid. If I were to try to quantify it, it doesn't mean I would pay that upfront. And part of the reason why we feel good about those purchases is, I think, because we feel that we got more than what we even paid for, in a sense.
Yep. Because you can look back at that time, and nostalgia is a thing too, like all that kind of stuff. But yeah, for sure, it's not. I mean, dude, it's not really a tit for tat. It really is separate. It really is separate situations, because for every game I look back on and say I did get over 100, there are games that I wish I got to play more that I might have also got over 100. So but that breadcrumb trail disappears because I didn't get a chance. I didn't have the time. That's the other thing. You'll hear people say, oh, this game's 60, this game's 60, this game's 60, but this game's worth it, this game's not worth it. The big problem is if you like a bunch of games, they all might be enticing. What's nice is, and I just got to say this, it is nice to have a game that's enticing to others and not to you. I love it. I know that it sounds weird, but I love it when I look at a game and I'm like, that's not for me, because I can cross it off the list of potential purchases, especially if they overlap on the same date of a release or something. And you're like, dude, seriously, that's $120 or $200 if they went to 100.
Like Nightreign, where you said, well, look, I'm not that interested to invest the time, like.
It feels good, man. It feels good. That's why I also don't believe in backlogs at all. I don't have a backlog. I'm not going to carry any psychological guilt from a purchase. I purchased it. I chose to purchase it. That's on me. I'm not going to sit there and look back at it and lament that I didn't play a game from 10 years ago longer than I really did. I don't give a fuck at all. It doesn't enter into the discussion. Oregon says, I found myself just hitting sales for the most part. There's so many games now. There's always something to be enjoyed on sale. True. There's also something to be said straight up about buying something day one and engaging in fun conversation and multiplayer day one that is not replicated later. It's just not. Regardless.
That's a lot of the fun for me too. Like when we jump in here and we have the excitement of, this is a recent release and maybe you've been playing it for a bunch for review, or we're all jumping in at the same time and trying it out.
It's so good when you guys have all played, because Silver plays slightly more eclectic games and he doesn't get a chance to get on, but like Cyberpunk or whatever, he did get on. But you've got these games, and or he did Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. It's like, okay, great. We can all talk about this thing at the exact same time with the same freshness. Nobody's spoiled. That is a moment in time that to me is well worth whatever investment I made, because it is the game for sure, but humans don't just work on that static part. After a while, it's also about the discussion and sharing of data. We're social creatures, man. That shit's awesome. I got 3 Switch 2s for my kids. They made me do it. And hi, Carrick, Johnny in chat. Damn, Colin.
All right, man. You're balling. Okay.
Damn, son. What else we got?
This one from A1 Nagel. How long does it take you to cut your losses and move on from a bad game, book, or show? Has there been any that you kept giving a chance or waiting for it to get good, but never did? I love the idea that you're just optimistically hammering the game. Like,
man. Yeah, it can't be a static number, right? Because we both played games. Red Dead 2, I didn't like the starting of, for example. But I knew what it was offering later, so that was easy because I had information. Just interviews they did, not insider. How long does it take? I would say I don't have a number. I don't know. I don't have a number. I just play, and then if something doesn't grab me after a while, I'm like, okay, well, this is just...
I think also it's an unfair comparison. Not that he's being unfair. I'm just saying, like, for a game, a lot of times we know quite well what we're getting into.
Yeah.
Because we just kind of know what type of game it is, right? Like, it's a survival game, so you're going to be chopping trees at some point,
Right.
So you have expectations. But with shows and books, a lot of times you might know what genre it is, but you really don't know if it's for you. Like, you know, you might jump into a book, like we talked about Brandon Sanderson. Like on paper, I thought you would have liked that, but it turned out you didn't like it.
Right.
And you really never know until you actually try it. And I think with those, I have a much more strict policy for a book. If I'm between 50 and 100 pages in and it hasn't grabbed me, I will drop it. And it's same with the show. If like let's say 3 episodes in and it hasn't grabbed me at all, I probably will drop it unless I really see like potential or like something that's keeping me in.
I will also say with shows, I think the majority of shows that I adore are shows that didn't grab me in the first 2 episodes, weirdly enough. So it took the third usually. I would also say we're pretending as if a game won't hint at further greatness or a movie or show won't. If a game has got me for 2 or 3 hours and there's no greatness hinted at, that's probably an easy walk away. Because you're just like, oh, nothing about this has enticed me that in the future this skill might be good or in the blah, 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 blah. But with shows, you'll get a character that you like or a story plot line that you want to see. And maybe I went back to Fringe. I mean, that's notorious for me. Definitely half a dozen times before I finally watched that 3rd episode and was like, oh, shit. But that's just because of friends who kept saying, you will. They understood where I was coming from when I said I didn't understand why this and this. And they were like, dude, seriously, I think you need just one extra. And I'll listen to somebody. I think that's fair.
And there are some exceptions. Like, for example, Breaking Bad, I went into it knowing that the whole premise is that it was going to be an evolution over time.
Right. So in a weird way that you already know that it might be
you're kind of bought in.
It might be,
Yeah, or like you're accepting, like similar with your reviews, where you will manage our expectations. You know, you will kind of tell us that, hey, this thing is there, right? This is part of the experience. And somehow knowing that in advance.
Yeah, it's a little helpful. Yeah.
It is helpful because now you're okay with that, right? If you're buying into it, it's like, well, I already knew that was a thing.
That's why I don't get too mad when somebody says, like, if I say that there's a problem and somebody says, hey, I didn't have a problem with this, I can't believe you had a problem. I'll be like, well, but you know I had a problem with it because you listened and you're forewarned. I wasn't. And there is a difference there. And you try to manage it, but it is difficult. But yeah, it's interesting, though. I don't think I have a time for games. I just play it. If there's no greatness, if there's nothing about it that's catching me, if I'm having to review it, great, I'll review it. I'll play it all the way through and I'll just suck it up and be like, but I'll always try to point out if somebody, you know, people put together something that took 3 or 4 years, just like a book I don't like, I could still say there's a character I loved. You know, there's a desire for hate or love. And I'll get it a lot of times. I can't believe you did positives and negatives. It was like you're trying to do both sides. And I'm like, you do know what positives and negatives mean, right? Like that is quite literally pros and cons. That is why they're there. But they're accustomed to I cried after playing this game because it was so bad. And you're like, oh God, here we go. Because you already sort of know.
Yeah.
And same thing with books, book reviews. Somebody will say, oh, this was terrible all the way through. And I'll be like, I get that. I understand. And I'll read it. And most of the time they're right. On books, I've found that they're usually right. More than games because there's no interactivity in a book. So I'll be like, this person hammered on this book. There must be a reason. And I would say book reviews I've found to be, unless it's like Amazon book reviews, you can't trust them. But I mean, if I find a literary person who covers books, I'll usually mirror that exact person's. And you won't see as much variation. I will say with games, you'll see a little bit more variation because it's 80 hours.
So it's a bit more objective too.
Yeah, there's a bit more going on. Real quick, Wizard of Smoke says Carrick, except for Gene Rain. That one burnt you. Yeah, Gene Rain, you know, I had to do it for a review, and I sat through it. And that was a game. It was a game that booted.
Yeah, Gene Rain. Wow.
Gollum, Gene Rain, and Alakine's Gun. Sea of Thieves Day 1. Nothing in that fucking game.
I respect it, though.
Master Chief
you know, they had a crack
collection.
With Gene Rain.
They did have a crack.
they had a crack. And
that's why the G-Rain developers right on the YouTube video were like, we understand, we absolutely appreciate it. It's like, it's because you're giving it a crack and it didn't work out, man.
Yeah.
It didn't work out. Yeah. Every winner has been a loser at some point. It happens. Best fighters in the world lose. It's life. I'm not going to say you didn't lose. That would be ridiculous. How many times have you seen a great fighter go out there and get his ass kicked because he was stupid? You can say that. Be like, people can say that I fucked up on a review. I'm like, okay, great. But why? It's done. That point in time is done. Yeah, it's like you absolutely can say that. That's the way it should be. What the fuck? Like it doesn't make any sense for people to be protectionist about this kind of stuff. I find it really hard to drop a book without finishing it. Fair. Right?
Yeah, but I would say with books, I think that's a really good skill to be able to drop a book. To
drop it? Yeah.
Yeah. Because what it will do actually is it will drop your enjoyment of the activity itself, right? If the book, let's say you're committed to a 700-page book and you're just not enjoying it.
Yeah.
So much of your free time now is going to be, and this is the same thought behind the backlog conversation where people feel forced to play, insert shitty game you picked up on a sale 5 years ago. People feel the need to go in there and just clear that off their list. And they go into this chore where now they're turning their free time into something not enjoyable voluntarily.
I'm going to do this 4 hours or less. I'm going to ask the people in chat and then I'll say more. That's a hard question to do a poll, just so everybody knows.
Do you have like a page number where you would drop a book if it's not grabbing you?
There's very few things I'm good at in life. I'm very good at reading fast. So I would probably put it down if there was nothing in it that grabbed me. And I absolutely have. I would say it's just if nothing grabs me and I find myself forgetting what I read, which is a big no-no for me. If I'm reading something and I go, where am I? Or where are the characters in this world? Like, are they standing where I won't even know if they're in a castle or something, where your brain is just detached? Then I'm pretty comfortable saying most of the books I read, I'll continue reading like you if I like, and I'll put them down. But sometimes I'll just see a book and there'll be a character I like and I'm waiting for him to come back. Game of Thrones would be rough because that character might not come back for fucking 15 books or something. You're 600 pages in.
And then you're supposed to remember that the guy with the whatever beard is
the guy with the beard, the patchy beard and the fucking eye patch shows up and you're like, oh, that was the guy I liked. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's difficult. That is difficult to know. I guess it's just a feeling on books. On movies, because they're passive, I will let a movie run in the background. And sometimes it'll take a movie maybe two times where I'll be like, there's something in this that I saw. The one with Emily Blunt and Benicio, Sicario. Sicario was filmed at a far distance in some places where the characters were talking. And once Sleeve, who taught film, he was in the chat and he was like, well, it's done for this and this reason, blah, blah, blah. I watched it again and appreciated it. And I enjoyed that movie, but it definitely was one where I felt myself distanced and didn't realize it was generally on purpose. I think there's still some issues with that movie, but generally
isometric movie.
Dude, there were times where there's one scene in particular where they are like 900 feet away from the camera talking, and you can hear them still because they've got the audio piping in. But you're like, what the fuck?
Is that Emily Blunt?
Dude, I was like, did the guy forget where the fucking zoom is? Like, what is going on? Why are they so far away? And why do I care that they're so far away? I don't think it explained, or I don't think it did a good job giving you an idea of why it was so far away. And a great director can have a movie that they don't hit. But at the same time, that movie had some amazing moments in it. And I'm glad I did stick through it because I was like, oh, damn, the part at the border was insane. The last fight was okay, but some of the politics behind the scenes I love amongst government agencies trying to do something. I've always been interested in that. I really like that in that movie. Carrick, do you remember the books you read afterwards? Yes. Yeah, definitely. And I'll read them again right away. Doesn't matter. If I like a book, I'll read it again. Many times.
Do you ever read like out loud? I know it sounds silly, but like to yourself?
No, not out loud to myself, but I do. I know supposedly some people don't have an inner monologue, but technically everybody's got an inner voice of some kind. There's like whatever the science.
Yeah.
But I can hear my voice when I'm reading. For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're not projecting like
I'm not saying it.
Other voices. Okay. Because for some time,
no, I don't.
I tried like when I read, I would like project.
So if it was a female's voice, you were like,
yes, it would be like Scarlett Johansson, and someone else would be like Morgan Freeman. And in my head, I was trying to like put a skin.
I don't even know how to do that, but that would be like an audiobook, but not an audiobook, but for yourself.
But
that's
in your
pretty
head.
Cool.
Yeah, but it was a lot of extra compute, in your head, like.
Yeah, I feel like that would be tough. I will say, if I know somebody's voice in real life,
really
I've seen a podcast with them, and scientists in particular, when I read his books, it is quite literally Krauss reading the book. I mean, every word he says is him talking to me in a book. And so
because you've heard those words said by him, the inflection. And,
yep. Neil deGrasse Tyson, Sarah Walker, any of the, when it's so funny because yes, I will crack open the book and I'll read it and it's not me anymore. If I haven't heard the author, it's me. If I have heard the author, it's almost always the author. If they've been on a podcast, it's like, boom, it's the author right away. And I don't even notice it until like maybe later. And I'll be like, oh yeah, that was actually the author reading me that. It was Neil deGrasse Tyson talking to me, when I was reading his book. I have noticed that slowed me down. I was reading Pale Blue Dot by Carl Sagan, and Carl Sagan liked to talk like, and you're like, Jesus, Carl, fucking speed it up.
Let's go, Carl. Come on.
I was reading his book and I was like, damn, I'm reading at his speed. He did a couple books, and there was one later one I believe might have been more about evolution. I can't remember, but I remember reading it going, I got to speed this up because I'm reading it like he talked. Oh man, he's good though. He's good.
Yeah. Damn. Yeah.
Wizard of Smoke says, true story. I hated Fallout at first. Decided to give it a second chance. I don't know which one you're talking about because there's 4 Fallouts, but Fallout 3, I hated at first. Yeah. What else we got?
This one from Jesus Crust. Is there a superhero that you think would provide a very unique gameplay experience? I'm wondering if part of the reason Black Panther was canceled was the difficulty to make an experience that represents the character, but also manages to be fun and able to differentiate itself from the myriad of titles.
Who fucking asked that?
There.
Jesus Crust?
Jesus Crust. It's a good one.
That's like a question that somebody asks after they've heard a 4-hour, dissertation at one of those science podcasts, and the kid gets up and asks a question that everybody goes, damn.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I would agree. It probably, and how do you differentiate it from the 15 TV shows and movies we have that have a
open world games or whatever, like
open world games? Yeah.
I think Spider-Man was a good example of a very unique hero. And they did a good job of making it unique too, where like no other game felt like playing Spider-Man.
Yeah,
because of the swinging and everything.
His entire skill is mobility that you don't see others. They're either
in the
flying
combat,
or
like
running.
the acrobatics in the combat,
So
like
good.
they nailed.
Dude, they nailed it. They nailed it, and they nailed the. It's the fact that like if you were to take Punisher and Daredevil, and see him from afar, like the movie I was talking about earlier, and then you got Black Panther, if you put them all in the same clothing, you might assume they all were the same character. Black Panther's definitely more martial artist, but you get my drift. There's something that overlaps a bit, where Spider-Man, you'd see that from a mile away and be like, that's just got to be noir Spider-Man if he's dressed in black.
I think Wolverine is a good one, right? He's got a super unique everything about him, even like his gait and the way like he's always
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Like the way he would move is like a lot of with his arms and stuff. So there's a lot unique there.
He has the 18-year-old high school bully walk down pat. Like Wolverine, like the arms out, pretending like.
And even the way
wide.
he sometimes moves, where like he uses the claws to go up a building or something in the animations.
Craig says, I imagine Black Panther to be Batman mixed with Spider-Man combat. In some, yeah, that's why I was saying the martial arts. I took back a little bit because he definitely has a different fighting style than say Punisher.
But the game kind of makes me think it would be similar to a Batman Arkham type, like just from the gameplay.
Yeah, I agree with that. What else we got?
This one from Max. He says, "Hey guys, love the podcast. Just wondering, love you back, buddy. Just wondering, don't you think games these days really need a clear roadmap for DLC and updates if they want to stay alive long term? But they've also got to get the base game right from the start. If the launch is a mess, no one's going to care about the future DLC, no matter how solid the roadmap is. That would push developers, especially AAA studios, to actually focus more on bugs and core gameplay at launch. Curious what you guys think." Yeah, that's a good point. I think it might not be viable to focus on both of those in a way. So if you spend a lot of energy in having a really fleshed out roadmap, that might take away from time of like polishing up the base game experience. In an ideal world, you'd have time for both, but if you had to choose, I would prefer just focusing on the base game and not having a roadmap.
Yeah, the updates sounds weird to me because what do we mean by updates? To me, updates usually mean patches and fixes. I would rather have the game be ready day one. And so that also negates anybody who's like pretending that, indie or early access are suddenly a great thing. They're not. We have to combine them all together. You're not just magically a good person because you have a certain nomenclature in front of the word that describes you. Like, sorry, we're well past that now. I think updates, not so much. I think DLC for sure. And I also think people have gotten confused. Not confused, but I think people have a tendency to look at something like No Man's Sky and see, okay, it is possible to do what they did. I don't think any developer wants to No Man's Sky their clientele. Like, it's just not a thing, and it's just not. They didn't even want to, but they did it. Cyberpunk did it. I don't care if you like Cyberpunk right now. Your kid was ugly. Your kid was like ugly as a child. Like, that was a fucked up looking kid, and you got to suck it up.
The first pancake was rough.
Yeah, I mean, that kid was nasty. They need to be in the attic for a while. It should never been released. And so we get into that discussion. I don't think updates is a part of it because I don't know what the term updates would mean. I think DLC, though, I would like to know what the DLC was prior, because I'm buying into, or possibly I'm buying into the ecosystem of liking the original game and wanting DLC. But I think that there's also something to be said about developers not knowing what's going to happen with a game. We've seen games that are great not sell well. And it is quite literally nobody's fault, especially now as we have so many games. We've seen bad games sell well. Sorry, guys. But I think a lot of consumers like to think that the ultimate thing that could occur would be good games sell well and bad games don't sell well. But because of the number of titles, I don't think we have enough consumers for that to occur. And then also, if a game is great, but it is a racing game in a cel-shaded world where your main character is a water balloon that squirts semen, you are now niched down to the point to where selling well would be 1,000 people. Yep. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's this sort of thing that gets blown up where people are like, oh, okay, if it's good, it'll sell well. It may, but it may not sell well enough to make money. It may not sell well enough outside of its niche to garner widespread purchases that keep the developer going. It's false. We've seen good books not sell well. We've seen great movies not do well. It's a false sense of security, and it makes people feel warm. That's my belief. My belief is it's very comfortable that there is a warm future out there that will coddle you and make you know right away that it's going to be great. Yeah. Doesn't mean I don't want to fight for it. I just don't think we would ever get there.
Yeah, I understand the perspective of like, it's cool to know that there's a bunch of content planned, that like you're buying into a as like a future thing too.
A future ecosystem of content.
Yeah, for me, I've never bought a game because of the roadmap.
Ever.
No, I buy it for what's there.
Yeah.
Day one. You know what I mean? So like, for example, let's put an example like Borderlands. It came out with this Borderlands 3, came out with this big roadmap with the different DLCs that are going to come out and stuff. I bought it because I wanted to play the game that was coming out day one. I didn't know if I was going to like it enough to want to play DLC. And I think that's the case most of the time. We don't know how a game is going to turn out. You may like it, but not want to play any further. Some games I've loved, I was completely done at the end. Like Death Stranding, I would not have said yes to a DLC at that point. I was just very happy with the conclusion and, being done with it. So that's one thing. The other thing that I think about is I love the idea of not having a strict roadmap, because then devs can be really reactive to what's working and what isn't. Like, to give an example, Space Marine 2, they had some roadmap, but they were able to also adjust the things that people were really clamoring for, like the Horde mode. They worked on that because people said, we really want this. I love the ability to adapt so like the base game comes out, this part really works, people want more of this, less of that. Let's shape the future of the game based on those, receptions.
Yeah. It's hard, man. Like, it's hard to know what's going to do well, because just like a book, you don't know if the first book's going to be good, second book might suck, and now you suddenly have half a book or half a series done, and you're like, oh, well, this sort of fell off. Or you jump into something like, I didn't start watching The Walking Dead because I thought episode 12 or season 12 would be amazing. I just sort of bought into it and spent my time and my subscription to jump into what I thought was going to be good and then see how long it lasts. Same with games. Very difficult to identify. I think also if you get 10 of us in a room and you say, I would bet you everything that you and I both have, that if we got 10 of us in a room and one of the guys said this game is good, someone in that room would say, no, it is not. And that's free will. And that is why this will never, it's something to hope for. But I like wanting those specific things is just quite difficult.
Yeah.
I would love to see games not do early access, but I know that it gives companies, well, see, we see early access from companies that don't really need the money either. Or I don't say that, I don't run their financials, but you get my drift. You'll see that you'll be like, why is this company doing a Kickstarter? And then the indie's doing a Kickstarter. And then you get the horrible discussion of, well, they're an indie, they've only got this many people, and you look it up and they've got 250 working with them. And you're like, all right, well, now that's spread that's an indie dev that's got this specific thing. So yeah, it's hard, man. It's difficult to know. I think in all honesty, you just have to be a smart consumer and look at and hope that what you buy and what you're told and what you see is going to pan out. And that you have to be aware that sometimes you're going to spend money on a stinker. It's going to happen. I don't want to see a No Man's Sky ever again, though. I don't want to see a Halo Master Chief. I don't want to see a Days Gone. I don't want to see a Cyberpunk. If I can fucking verb your name, I don't want it to ever see it again. If somebody on PR sends me an email that says, don't worry, we're not going to Cyberpunk you, I'm like, damn, son, that became an action in like the popular discussion about not fucking over a consumer. I don't want to No Man's Sky you. That's a discussion. We're not going to Days Gone you. That's a discussion. That to me is like, no one wants to be there, and that includes devs, whether it be indies or AAAs. Nobody wants to be there.
For every No Man's Sky, you have, hundreds or thousands of other games that screwed up day one and never came back, right?
Never came back, yeah. And I want them to, we just don't have enough consumers to buy everything, but I definitely want the good games to succeed and the bad ones not. I mean,
sure.
That's just the way it is. What else we got?
This one from AJ. Hey guys, thanks for the podcast as always. So what's the worst thing you've done in a video? I thought he was going to say in your life, what's the worst thing?
Yeah, I was like, dude, no way we're saying that. I would have put it into that one.
What's the worst thing you've done in a video game to a fictional character? Oh, Here we go. All right, Carrick. Sims.
Oh yeah,
toaster.
Right, yeah.
Like you.
I wasn't even thinking Sims.
Someone's fingers.
Yeah, definitely. Like building a swimming pool and taking the ladders out was so great. Watching them die was hilarious. I'm not going to say what I did in Sims. There's some stuff that I did in Sims that people would be like, they don't understand. I love systems and I love to see how they work. So it's not like I would do this to a real person, but I did some questionable shit in Sims that is questionable well beyond what I just said. And you're like, damn. Like, dude, does he mean let's remove, can we, for this question, can we remove cutscenes where you just do it like GTA and torture scene or something? Like,
of course,
it has to be an action you take. And it has to be above
like
and beyond.
You made a small cubicle room in The Sims without any doors or windows and put someone in there.
That I feel like games show so much violence that it's really difficult to one up the game's already established violence.
A lot of times, yeah.
I mean, Division 2, you're lighting people on fire and then shooting them as they're on fire, screaming. So it's like,
it's hard to top that. Yeah.
Murdering the baby owl bear in BG3.
I did that too, by the way.
Did you?
And and I feel you. I also felt bad immediately after. I have one. Do you remember like Shadow of Mordor or
Shadow
the first one? I forgot the name. I think Shadow was the second, but like the first one.
Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War.
There you go. Yeah. So both. Yeah. So Shadow of Mordor, you had the ability to, the Nemesis system. So like your enemies would change over time based on your prior encounters. There was this guy. He was called Saga the Poet, right? And I was playing with a friend of the channel, Molotov Michelle, right? So she was in the game, and she killed that guy so often, Saga the Poet, that he slowly started to degrade and became Saga the Drooler, or something like that. Oh, so he went from poet, and he was like eloquent, right? In the beginning, he started to like not even be able to talk because of how many times she killed him.
Damn,
and I just like the way she laughed about it too was just this evil, like, just an amazing evil gaming moment right there.
Yeah, I mean,
always remember Saga.
Yeah, that was a good game for making you feel like you had some kind of impact on a character, right?
Yeah,
it felt. There's a quest in Jade Empire. So basically there's like these ghosts in a flooded out village, and you can either help the ghosts or you can flood the village. Could be that that helps the ghosts. It's been a while since I played Jade Empire, but I remember whatever choice I made was definitely the dark one. And I remember, and then Knights of the Old Republic #1, there's some aliens being enslaved under the water on Manan, and you can like help them out or not. And I don't think I've ever helped him in all my playthroughs. I don't know why. I'm just like, no, I'll let him live. Sending people to be slaves in Fallout 3, blowing up Megaton. Did you get impacted by Megaton? Megaton never, I don't know. Maybe it's too overt. Megaton never, I don't know what it was. Megaton didn't really impact me too much. I mean, it did, but it wasn't like, oh man,
it was certainly cool. You know, the choice
cool. That is true. Yeah,
I saw it coming quite a bit, I think, too.
Yeah,
just because everything was pointing towards that, but it certainly was cool to have the ability to impact.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. What else we got in there?
All right, let's see. This one from Master Pass. The Witcher in Concert USA tickets went on sale today. Is there another game score you want to see performed live? No cheating and picking Nier, Persona, or Final Fantasy. Okay, I mean...
They would not even be on my top 20. That's so weird.
Bro, really?
Not for a concert. Especially Nier, which adjusted with you. But I would say definitely Advent Rising would be #1. #2 would be... You know what? I like my music dynamic with the game, so I'm having a harder time with this one. I would say Syndicate would be really cool because it's not a type of music I like, but I really felt that Assassin's Creed Syndicate's music was fun and different. A lot of my stuff's vibe-ish and doesn't really translate well to a concert, but Advent Rising is probably number one. What would your number one be if it's not those three?
Outside of those, I think Elden Ring would be pretty epic.
Man, I'm trying to think of an Elden Ring track. Not anything against Elden Ring. It's just been a while.
I totally know what you mean. Yeah. They all blend together for me. I wouldn't be able to tell you, oh, this is like Margit's theme or whatever. But I just remember lots of moments where like, oh, that's a banger.
Wait a minute. What's the game? Dude, I just reviewed this game. And it's got some of the... Oh, it's slipped in my... Oh. It's got some of the best music ever. It's... Can't believe this is gonna... I'm gonna feel bad. There's a game that I remember all of us talking about, and I was like, this game's music is absolutely insane. Did I not add it? I probably didn't add it to OpenCritic, or OpenCritic didn't add it for some reason. Oh, man, this is killing me. There's a game that... It's not South of Midnight, but it's got the same kind of music. It's... Expedition 33.
Oh, yeah, man.
Expedition 33's music is phenomenal. It's unbelievable. It just doesn't even... It's some of the best music in the last, like... that's sort of unfair to say. But, I mean, it's in my head, but it's up there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Dude, I mean, some boss fights, when that thing kicks in and, like, there's a dude that starts singing with, like, a raspy voice, like, super... At times when it goes really hard and it's like a big boss fight and stuff.
I would say Expedition 33's music kept me going at times where I didn't...
Definitely.
I was a little less interested because I wasn't like in an area or whatever in the music, and I was just like, oh, shit, this is great music. Yeah, I would love to hear it. Austin Wintory was, when he was on the podcast, did state that for the most part, when he does live or when he does an album versus the game, they are different. And he said he has noticed, and this is a while ago, so this may have changed, but he had said he had noticed some people not loving some of the choices he's made between those. And I think, I can't remember what game we were talking about at the time when he was on the podcast. I have to go back and look. But he was saying that, like, people will expect the game music and not realize that they might have hooks, so it changes the tempo at a very particular time, which just hits you and I. But let's go the opposite. Worst offense in music, by far, Anti-Stinger. Nothing worse. There is simply nothing worse than going into a game and being like, okay, I'm ready for this. And a poignant moment comes up and it's ruined because the music pops off, 10 seconds earlier than it should have. And you're like, God damn you, and that does happen. I've definitely had it happen quite a bit, actually, where a game's music just for whatever reason pops up too early. And it just ruins your day. It ruins that moment that could have mattered so much, where you're like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Nope, we're going to ruin that for you. Is there any other games that you like up there on your list?
No, I think Expedition is a really good one because it's also orchestral, good for a concert. So yeah, that's probably it. Metaphor had some good tracks.
Metaphor,
so
Metaphor
technically
had some good
not
tracks.
Persona. Yeah.
No, it's not. No, it's not Persona. It's Metaphor. Why would somebody say it was Persona just because of?
It's like same creators, maybe.
Come on.
Because he did say no cheating, so.
Right, but I mean, I like. Yeah. No, I get that, but I mean, I like multiple tracks by Austin, so it wouldn't be fair if I would, feel like you can do that.
Yeah.
What else we got?
Last question from I am John Galt. I'm a degreed engineer, been working in the industry for 5 years now, but I feel I am losing the passion for it. My passion has always been gaming. Do you think it's a good time to get into development? If so, any suggestions on where to start?
Unreal Sensei is really good on YouTube if you want to jump in and learn development. It is Unreal, obviously, hence the name, but really good. Yeah. Every GDC you can possibly download and watch. The time investment for learning is, or for watching those is pretty high. But I would say getting Unreal because it's free and jumping in.
Yeah.
And then trying to figure out whatever it is. I mean, everybody wants to make a game. It's really like, do you have an idea that is start, middle, and end? And we have developers in the Discord, both professional as well as super indie. Like Amutski's made a game. He made a game for his college. And even he was saying the same thing. It's very difficult, which is funny, dude. So this is a guy who's only got like 3 or 4 people with him. I can't remember how big their project was. Quite small. Even this super small development team had the exact issues that we lament or people bitch about or whatever. For example, they were halfway through and just decided, Ken Levine it. We're resetting everything. We don't like the entire narrative. We're resetting that. And it was very interesting. Every day he was coming into chat and he was like, so we're doing this, but we decided to do this. And you're like, damn, that happens to everybody. It's like it's almost like getting halfway through a book and saying this character's not working, and the writer just saying, we're gonna have to change the guts. We might leave some characters in, but we're gonna change the guts. So you have to know what a beginning, ending, and or beginning, middle, and end would be. I would say mess around versus start.
Yeah, mess around
and see if
or just start, do something, you know.
Well, that's what I mean.
Carve a little bit of time.
Yeah, carve a little bit of time and mess around to see if you
mess around,
dude. If you're gonna like the grind of development,
if you're gonna and it always reminds me of when people say, "Should I start a YouTube channel and stuff?" Like,
I'm
have
like,
a crack.
Dude, nah, they way too late. If you're asking somebody,
way too late if you're asking.
Yeah, it's
because you should you should just do it and see. You will know very clearly if you're gonna be okay doing 100 of those videos. You know, you're gonna know pretty quickly, I think, into it, whether it's something you're gonna really like. Yeah. The other thing, by the way, passion is kind of a charged word, or people mean different things by it. Personally, I don't believe your job has to be your hobby, your fun,
right,
something that you would do in your free time. I think that passion is something you develop over time as you become better and better at something. And for me, for example, my job as a software engineer, it's not something I would do in my free time for fun. But over time, I've developed a passion for it to a certain extent. And developing people and designing stuff, that's become a passion. So that's what I would say too, is you need some time for something to become a passion. And if you've lost passion in your job, there's also always the possibility of getting horizontal moves within your own company, or changing company, trying something different within your field. Especially as an engineer, you have a lot of options there. So I'll definitely try to shake things up and see where it goes.
I would also say, if you're doing something on the side, make sure you don't have morning skill epiphany, which is what you have in a video game where you're bad at night, you wake up in the morning and suddenly you're good. When it comes to development, your brain may work better. I am very clinical in the morning. In the afternoon, it is very much not that. It is much more loose and free, and so I have to make sure that I schedule what I'm doing to align with those time frames. And it is reversed in the last 12 years, where it used to be early morning was very, I guess, free form, and in the afternoon I did my best coding or did my best, if I was writing at the time or whatever. You need to find out when your brain works, because some people wake up, who knows what it could be. It could just be hormones, whatever. They wake up and they're sharp. And no matter what they eat during the day, they're never as sharp as the first 12 or 13 hours. Then you get a John Carmack who's been very open about the fact that he codes at 3 a.m. And I definitely have a cycle. So you should find out when you're the best for listening. Go find stuff to listen to when you feel like you retain more and you're more interested, and then do your coding whenever your brain is like, this is me right now. Because morning skill epiphany sucks balls if you have to force, especially if you're involved in your job and you're just constantly getting rubbed up against, because people are asking you before your coffee if that's your thing. My thing, I get up early and I'm fine, but I know a lot of people who get up and they look or they sound. Have you ever heard somebody get into a chat, Johnny, and they're like, everybody, and they've got that vocal fry because they've been laying down, and you can hear their brain going, bro, cut it. Like, we need 45 minutes before we can start talking because they're just so slow in the morning. And that's fine because they won't be later on. You just have to find your timing. That's an interesting question, though, because, dude, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It is a lucky person who enjoys their passion forever if that is also their job. It is a very lucky person, if not ultra rare. And like, for example, if I ever lose my passion, I will quit tomorrow. I will be like, I'm done. We're done. Because I don't want to lose games. I love games. So, I mean, that's why I'm up all the time and always say, if that ever happens, I'm gone. I think if somebody loses their passion for a job that isn't already their big thing, that's okay. You don't have to. There's been this like lie told to people that like they need to go to work and be, I can't wait. I think there's a little bit of, at least for me, where I sort of dig that my work is separated from my life. That's not as much now, but in the past, I sort of dug it because I would come home and I'd be like, I'm done. You know, with that, and your brain is like, let's party, and party was games or party was friends. But let's say you're a party organizer, then party and friends is your job. And holding on to that passion is pretty rare. I think a lot of people need a little something on the side that maybe drags or has a rigmarole to it that isn't just passion. That's just me.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to like change the world, then pretty much the only way is for those to be aligned. Like what you want to do in your free time is also where your money's coming from, right? So those are fully aligned and you're like workaholic, right? And that's just what you want to do with your life. That's fine too. But that's just a different outlook on life. And you have to kind of make a value judgment on what you prioritize there.
And I mean, I think there's a reason why the words are different. I mean, work and hobby, they are a different thing. And work and passion are, and it's okay that they're separated. We don't all get that chance of jumping in and being like, boom, you know, I absolutely love this. I've had jobs I hated, but I was good at something, so I took pride in that. And I was like, okay, I would say that's the other thing. Take pride in something. So like, let's say you're at a job. This is going to sound really weird, so I want to get this out. But let's say you're at a job that you don't like. If you do well at it, you could at least take pride that you did well at a job. That is a skill, because how many people do we know that if they don't like their job, they are terrible at it? That is actually a very useful skill, because in programming, every developer will tell you that. Victor talked about it. There are times where they're programming, they do not like what they're working on because it's something that just isn't their bailiwick. They're not a big fan of it. Even if they're good at it, they're like, this is not my thing. So it exists in every job too. But if you can take confidence and some pride in walking home and going, you know what, I don't love this, but fuck, I nailed the shit out of that. That's actually, dude, that's pretty, that's a little sexy. Like, if you get somebody who's like, dude, I do not like this. I've had people who, some of the best workers ever, I know they hated the job, but they wanted to go home and never have the idea that behind them, they weren't doing well. They would fucking rock it. And then at 5, whatever the time to go home was, that dude was gone. Like, you could have put chains on his car and he would have he would have just pulled the whatever you chained it to off and he would have gone home. But he was amazing there. But that was his thing. He was like, I'm going to make sure I do well here and then leave. It's nice too.
Yeah, that's something I really respect. The ability to just show up regardless of how you feel. Whether you feel motivated about the work or if you're completely apathetic about it, you know what? I'm going to show up. I'm going to have a crack. And that's it. And it's the same thing with grit when it comes to like showing up for your workout, even if you had a shitty day, right? And actually, I don't know where that comes from. It is something I'm working on, like trying to develop that too, where it's, you know, pretty much like I show up for the workout, and even if it's a crap workout because of something, I showed up. And I think where do you think that comes from? Like the grit and the difference between someone who's able to show up regardless of how they feel versus someone who relies on motivation. Is that like genetic, do you think?
It's probably nature and nurture combined, but I would say some of it is compartmentalization. So if you can compartment something that you, for example, some of the best weightlifters in the world, some of the best bodybuilders, they will straight up tell you the bodybuilding part they were known for. I just talked about this with AJ, who's a big bodybuilding fan. The best part they were known for, the part they hated working out. And it sounds like, what the fuck? But here's why they were good. Because if they only fucking worked on their upper body, they'd look like every Jimbo you see at the gym who only has a waist-up mirror and doesn't realize his little tiny bird legs aren't going to, he's going to have COPD the first time he tries to run away from somebody because he's never worked on his legs. Some of the best bodybuilders in the world hated working on whatever they worked on because they were able to compartmentalize that, just shove it to the side, get it done. Same thing happened to me in martial arts where there were certain things I was like, not for me. So I worked on them harder. And I would say that is one skill. You have to give yourself some help. But I do think that if you can work through those things you hate, there's something really awesome about getting done and being like, I put in, and by the way, I'm talking about even hate in YouTube, like editing isn't, I'm not a fan at times. But when you get done, there is this like aha moment.
Yeah, almost like credibility with yourself.
Yeah,
like,
you're
hey,
like, okay,
I showed up for this.
I showed up and I got it done and I put in the best effort that I was able to put into. And I would say if somebody wants to learn programming, the other big thing is to know what type of game you want to do, 2D or 3D, because there's different engines. Choice of, which is a narrative, choose your own adventure. What if you want to just bone up on writing? Then jump into that where it's not requiring a shit ton of skill technically, but you're still doing some, you're doing some scripting. You can figure that out. And yeah, it's a good time to jump in though. Maybe not sales wise, as in getting PR on your eye or getting eyes on your game, but it's a good time to jump in because the tools are there, right? I mean, the tools are insane for people who want to
do something almost instantly, just so get up and running. Yeah.
It's so nice. So nice. What else we got?
That was the last question for today.
Well, I got a couple before we wrap this up. I'll get through this real quick. Let's see. What do we got? Astronomers discovered a mysterious object bursting with X-rays, challenging existing models, it appears. What implications does this have for our understanding of the universe? And Carrick, do you give a shit? I also love that everybody has to drive. I do give a shit. I know what he's talking about. It's got a weird name, but it ends with 911. Have you heard about this thing?
No.
Okay, so listen to this. So it was a couple of weeks, maybe a month ago. Time sort of condenses when I look at science stuff because it's so dense. But so this thing emits insane amounts of power across multiple spectrums every 44 minutes for 2 minutes. And currently there is nothing ever in our history of looking that has come close to what this is. And they just found it and they're like, whoa, what the hell? So people are like, oh, magnetar, like maybe that's what it is. Those are a lesser known stellar thing, but it's something that we know of. But some scientists are really excited if it is a one of a kind, or maybe not a one of a kind. This isn't about life being, it's not a giant beacon, and it could be, but this is not what they're talking about. What they're saying is when you find a one-off, that is ultimately one of the greatest experiences ever because it's so rare to find a one-off like this. And so you have all these scientists and astrophysicists and stuff looking at it going, what the fuck is this thing? Because if there's only one, how in the shit did that get me? So aliens, this vapor blood says exactly.
Yeah,
but
alien.
The idea is like you rarely get a full thing. It's not a theory that they're talking about. This is like we can point at it and say, what the hell is that thing? And everybody sees it. So now everybody is chomping at the bit to figure out how do you make rules for it? How do you study it? How do you look at it? We got lucky. There was one observatory that was looking, and then another that happened to have it in a wide view, and it happened to show up as well. So there was the double evidence theory, whatever it is. It's like, two different groups saw it at the same time. We're able to track it
independent.
And then now they're continuing to track it. But it's like, what does that mean? And I think that's pretty cool. If you were a scientist and you're like, let's discuss black holes. Well, let's spend years on a new theory of a small, slight change. That's fine if that's your thing. But the idea that you're an astro, physicist and you're like looking at stars and you're like red dwarfs, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly this shows up. That's pretty fucking cool to be like, whoa, like that is weird. What is that? So I thought that was awesome. I would say it does influence like changing at the very least. People are going to have to figure out ideas on how that was made, because from what I understand, no one has a theory that even comes to, there's no theory in the past that goes, this might show up. There is no, what's occurring right now is so off the rails that people are like, I don't even think we have a theory. Any of our old
and that's super rare, by the way. So people understand, like, even when it comes to particle physics, which is like so, what would you say, like, difficult to scrutinize, difficult to measure, and everything. Like when we built the collider, the giant collider, I think the biggest one is in Geneva, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
Hadron Collider is the biggest one, right?
Yeah, the Hadron Collider. So we had all these theories about particles and the Higgs boson and everything, and nothing we've seen there has gone against the predictions so far.
Right.
So we haven't found anything unexpected based on what the calculations were.
Right.
Which is cool, but also so disappointing.
Yeah.
Because you would have wanted something similar to what you're describing, which is like, wait, what the hell is going on here?
Like three body problem where
like over here we got
what the hell's going on? Yeah.
That's
awesome.
Yeah. So it is cool when that pops up, because the norm has been sort of,
it's scrutinized and then slightly adjusted, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of physics has been shutting down the fun sci-fi like things.
Oh, you mean killing dreams?
Killing dreams.
Science is a sci-fi killing nightmare.
Like, okay, I can't travel at the speed of light. Yep. And it turns out that turns out that you have the action at a distance phenomenon where you have two entangled particles, and once you know the spin of one, you know the spin of the other. It doesn't matter how far away they are. But guess what? The fun thing you could do with that, which is maybe we can communicate faster than light, because if we see it over here, we instantly see it over there, light years away. But guess what?
Yeah.
They actually have like a proven theorem that you cannot transfer information faster than light using this thing.
It kills me.
So it's like,
cool worlds once again, you bastard. Sorry.
Yeah, there you
killed my dreams that day. Sorry.
Killed your dreams.
Continue.
Like,
I'm sorry.
This cool sci-fi plot. You could do a whole plot around this
Mass
thing.
Effect, when they use quantum entanglement for the messaging. And it's ruined.
Done.
It's ruined.
It's ruined.
It's ruined.
Like another one is the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, where basically, if you think about the cat alive or dead situation in the Schrödinger box, every time you inspect the box and you find the cat to be either alive or dead, the universe has now branched into two in this case, where in one the cat is alive and another one the cat is dead. And these are, in the theory, two different branches of the universe. So a multiverse, and it keeps multiplying. But all these branches cannot talk to each other.
Yeah.
So the fun thing that would be in a sci-fi movie where you can go to another branch and like see yourself, or, like visit a branch where Carrick has a blonde beard. It's like purple. Full blonde. Yeah, purple beard. You can't do it. And then, again, it's just like in the numbers, you can't do it. So your fun is cut short. None of it.
Yeah. Or what if the cat meows and then you open the box and it's still dead? That Schrödinger's cat thing's always confused me. I get the idea. Obviously, it's just a very easy description for people, but I'm always the guy who's like, well, if it's alive, you would hear some stuff, right? It doesn't matter. But dimensional stuff, cool worlds. I love that guy, but he ruins every one of my fucking dreams. I'll wake up, there'll be a video, and it'll be like, all right, man, we're going to talk about, I can't remember the drive. I think it starts with an S. He was the guy trying to show that drive, was possible. He was like, hey, here's what we might be able to do, blah, blah, blah. But then at the end, fucking absolutely shit on your dream. I love him. He's great, but it's like I got all excited because I'm like, oh shit, man, this guy knows his stuff. Like, not
you got all these cool ideas like the solar sail, where it's being pushed by the power of the sun and it's just accelerating unlimitedly.
It's why
and it's like
I wish I had good teachers. I think I was one of the lucky ones in our group when we all talk. I pretty good, like the school system where I grew up, they were fairly good teachers. Like, and I remember having a science teacher who was really good. Did a lot of experiments. I would have loved to have the Cool Worlds guy is Kipling, right? Kipping. Is that his name? Kipping for Cool Worlds? I'll look it up.
Kipping, I think.
Kipping, I think. But he is, I wish I had, because first of all, his way of talking about, it's kind of almost, it's very close to, David Kipping is his name, very close to Carl Sagan, but without the pronunciation.
I'm sure it's an influence.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah. He ruins everything. I love, and so does Kyle Hill.
Did you see Cosmos from like the recent one from Neil?
I did.
deGrasse. Yeah. Did you like that version too, or no?
I did not at all.
No.
It was fine, but it was way too in there. So there's something to be said about a presenter having very few tools. And back when Carl Sagan did his stuff, there wasn't CGI. There wasn't tools. There was his voice and the occasional footage, and it required your brain, like a book versus a game, to create some of the footage yourself. And when I got to the new version, it was just in my face the entire time. Everything was CGI. Everything was shown, and there was no imagination needed for it. So I tuned out. I watched it all, but I didn't. I didn't love it. I think that's life. That happens all over the time. That happens all the time with all kinds of different stuff. But you were talking about being surprised. I think that's why music's pretty cool, because you'll get a guitarist who will play a chord, and you're like, how in the fuck in all of the history of histories has nobody played that? There's still one that a guy did a very small snippet of a video game, and I've still got it on my PC. It's a kid, I believe he's a Japanese guitarist, but he's playing this maybe 45-second part from a game that he did on his own, and it's probably the coolest tone. I don't even know what the tone is. I rarely can say I've ever heard it, and I listen to a shit ton of music, but whatever he does in that, I'm like, damn, nobody's done that. Like, what the hell is that? That is crazy. So I think with some musical instruments, you can get to the discovery phase and do something somebody else, like, it feels pretty unique to you, or unique to that artist. I think that's still there. And then you add on, if you have a singer and stuff like that, you add on all the ability to have a unique vocalist.
I think music is unique in that sense, where you listen to something and quite instantly you will be captivated. So it could be, I don't know, like Jurassic Park theme, the first time you hear that, the horns coming in, or like Ori the Blind Forest had some moments like that. There's been a bunch of these
bands, especially. It's easy. Like Greta Van Fleet is like that. Queen, and then Guns N' Roses, because their vocalist does not look like what you hear. Especially Guns N' Roses. When I first saw Axl show up, he's a skinny, rangy guy, but I didn't expect that. And he first starts singing, and you're like, what the shit? It's like a box of pissed off cats in somebody's neck. Like, what in the fuck am I hearing? And even if you don't like him or that band, you still, I think 99.9% of people would be able to identify him versus 99% of the other, rock and roll that even came out at the time, because it's that distinct bit. It's always so cool when you have that. Sometimes a good drummer who sounds different than everybody else, and you're like, oh, that's like, you notice it, which is cool. You don't even have to know I think that's the other cool thing in music. I've noticed you don't have to know music to pick up on that. Maybe it's because we hear it so much, and so when you do hear something, you're like, wait, what is that there? Like, that's different.
What is that?
What is that cool thing that's going on in my brain? Even if you don't like it, you still, like, even even a family member who's old or something like that, who doesn't listen to this, like my mom and dad, if I were to tell them Guns N' Roses, I bet you $1 million my mom and dad would know exactly what I'm talking about, because it would pop up and everybody's like, wait, what? That's such an odd sound. We got anything else for games? By the way, there is a Bloomberg article on why EA canceled a new Black Panther, but I haven't got to read it. I don't know if that has any new data. And then Stellar Blade PC demo will be released on May 31st, so tomorrow.
Cool.
For Stellar Blade. We'll wrap this up with a Stellar Blade question. Stellar Blade 2, are you interested?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll play for sure.
Even with that ending, I'm not saying it's a closed ending. I'm just saying with the ending with the character, would you want it to continue that character?
Yeah, I like the setting a lot. I don't know about you. I dug the kind of post-apocalyptic, humanity barely holding on type thing. It was an odd combination too, with the androids and stuff that were so like good looking, right? Like, I mean, all of them, not just like the women. It was just kind of like very perfectly polished.
Yeah, perfectly androids. Model people, you know?
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm excited to see it.
With some odd music. Like at times the music was so odd, but I liked it. It worked really well.
Feels like people are becoming more experimental in game music. I think South of Midnight's a good example of that, where you're like, even if you don't like it, which I can definitely see people being like, ooh, this is really on the edge of almost like it's not improvisation like jazz or anything, but there's something about it that's a little off kilter. I could see somebody still appreciating it, being like, oh, wow, that is a different style.
I noticed they did something a little bit similar in Expedition 33, where the theme songs would have the character names in them. So if she was singing about, you know, Gustav or any of the other characters, you would hear their names mentioned. I don't know whatever hell they're saying, right? Because I don't speak French.
Because you don't speak, yeah. Did you play that with French subtitles, or did you do it with English subtitles? Or English voice?
English voices,
me too.
100%.
How anime would that game need to look for you to want to change it to subtitles? How how offset and unique would those characters be before they would trigger your idea that it needed to be in its original language, like people treat anime? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Does that make sense to you? And what I'm asking? Okay.
Yeah, I think so for example, Persona 5, I did play with the Japanese voices.
Go. Okay, gotcha.
But I did also find I didn't like the English ones very much. So it was almost a workaround to get around the annoying voice from Ryuji, for example, in English. It was a little bit better in Japanese. And it was, but you're right, it was so Japanese that it did fit, right? Where something like Stellar Blade was much more westernized. And I wouldn't necessarily want Japanese for that.
Intercept that. The reason why I ask is because you know me, I'm always listening. I pretend I'm not, but I'm always listening. And whenever we get the question of like, oh, you need to be, you know, it needs to be in this language or this language, I'm like, why would we artificially make me take away from, you know, blah, blah, blah. So you get that question. And then you get a game like this not made by an English studio in the typical way. And that brings and it's a JRPG and a lot of stylings, not all of them. So
how French would it have to be for you to?
How French would that fucking game have to be before you were like, the only way to listen to this is in French, which you hear all the anime people saying. They're like, oh, the only way to play this is in Japanese. It's like, okay. So if all things being equal with your pinky up ass, how fucking French does that game need to be? You know, it's just weird. Aries says Stellar Blade's Korean. Did you play that in Korean?
No.
I don't know if he realized I was talking. We had jumped to Expedition. So, but
right. Yeah.
But with Stellar Blade, I didn't have any issues with Stellar Blade being in English. I didn't think it was great.
No.
I didn't think it was amazing voice. It really depends. Voice acting, man, voice acting, you can have one character that you hate and you almost want to switch it to a language you can't understand because for whatever reason, it almost makes it easier when you're, if you have to hear that one-liner from that character one more time.
But you're saying you didn't like the voices that much?
In Stellar Blade?
Expedition? No. Oh, sorry.
Oh, in Expedition?
Stellar or Expedition?
No, in Expedition. No, in Expedition, my question literally is to anybody who does the same thing with animation. How
yes,
because this is from a different studio, I was saying how different would it have to look before it would trigger the anime pinky up that you get from people where they're like, well, technically it needs to be in its native tongue. Because I think I told you with Expedition 33, I could definitely tell there was some translation going on. There was definitely the way things were told or the sentence structure at times, you'd be like, whatever. I don't know if that makes sense, but we'll just go with it. Also, when you look at the story, how the story is told, there's some beats that aren't typical, I would say, typical Western style beats. They're a little bit different and they're a little off paced compared to what we expect, which is exactly what you see with foreign cinema. So I was just wondering, you know, like how like if I put a cell shaded, let's say I put a cell shaded filter on Expedition 33, are all the other things fitting for that to be a title where you would be like, this needs to be Japanese subtitles, or in this case, French? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I've always wanted to know how deep, because you get that conversation with people and you're like, okay, you know.
Does it bother you if they try to do an accent? Like, well, in this case, they didn't really do a French accent, but they say French words, specifically when they say bad words.
Bad words.
Okay, gommage, yeah, that sounds so dirty.
Well, but I mean, nothing. We won't even go.
When they say bad words, they say them in French, like putain.
Yeah.
You know, like son of a bitch. Does it bother you when they do either accents or foreign words?
No, I'm the opposite of where I think people get mad at me because I'm okay with whichever one, where they want you to not be okay. They're like, you must listen to it in Japanese. I'm not that way with this either. I'm like, I'm okay with it, whatever it is. I'll listen to it in English because therefore I don't have to read it and I can look at the graphics and I don't have to try to parse their words. But no, it didn't bother me at all. I mean, there was some little bits of weirdness here and there, but that exists in any game, really. And thank God it was voiced, because, you know, you'd get a lot. The only thing I have an issue with that really bothered me with that game in a presentation-wise was hitting F all the time in the camp. Yeah. When there was good voices. So you've got these amazing voices. I felt that voice acting was really good. So you have this.
Why am I in charge of the?
Why am I in charge of you finishing your fucking sentence?
It's yet another QuickTime event, character.
Yeah. So I'm like, dude, I would love for this to just, because I feel like that's the way. Few people in the world talk like a WhatsApp chat. And that's what it feels like to me when I go into those kind of games that have you click the button, and that can be what do you call it? Naruto. I've played a couple of those. I've played the Force, not Dragon Force. What do you call it? Xenoverse.
Dragon Ball.
Ball. Xenoverse. I played that one, and that was like, ooh, You know, and you're like, oh damn, I got to hit this all the time. So the idea that game did it. And I was sitting here going, oh, man, this is great, because I really did like the voices. And then you get to those camps and you're like, what the fuck is happening right now? Why am I? What? I don't really know why they did. Maybe it's because they wanted to make sure that a person had a moment to walk away from the game or something. I don't know why that was. But it was odd, where you're like, oh, it feels a little disjointed, which happened in Mass Effect sometimes. They did a better job in Mass Effect by parsing half of a paragraph. And so then you could make your choice, where this one's just like, but no big deal. I was just curious.
I mean, I loved some of those voices in Expedition. I don't know about you, but Luna, she can narrate my entire life. You know, so be it.
If Luna didn't look the way she did, would you feel the same way?
Okay. I mean, hard to say.
Yeah.
Fair point.
Because one thing I think that Expedition has going for it, I'm just being brutally honest, is that it doesn't hold to what might be typical conventions, whether it be Japanese anime style with the big hair and everybody looking a certain way, or current Western style RPGs. It's like all these people are ripped. In fact, to the point of being hilarious. It's like, dude, even I was like, damn.
Yeah, the fit is tight.
It's tight. Like, you're just like,
shit.
But I did find that to be attractive, and it attracted me when I was playing it. I was like, this is it's really nice to see. It was cool. Also, I've joked about this, but when you see that character that you're like, that person's in shape and they can't run because it's a game mechanic, right? Where sprint runs out in 5 minutes or 5 seconds. And you're like, what? Yeah. Or you see the game where it's the opposite. And in that game, I felt like those people went on an expedition and they were in the shape to do so.
They were ready.
They were ready to do. They were the Navy SEALs of fucking fucking around. They were like, we're going on an expedition. You better not be eating that donut.
Let's go. I've prepared my entire life for this.
So maybe they were all chomping on the baguette at times. But yeah, I did really like, I thought that I liked the look on her. I liked the look on, I thought all the characters looked good, except they did give me World Police. Their head proportions were definitely a little odd, and the lip syncing was a little odd. So after a while, I was like, and it looked a little like a marionette. But that might just be the style of French developer.
No, it is true.
Doing their own thing.
But it's because they were so lean.
Yes,
that the bodies actually seemed oddly small compared to the faces.
Bro, it was so noticeable. It was so noticeable. Sorry, my audio went weird there. It was so noticeable that while I was sitting here playing games with my wife, she goes, damn, they are in shape. And I was like, I've never heard her once say anything about a character in a game. And that was the first time she was, I think I had turned to the side with a character and the camera showed their side profile.
It's just locked in, man.
And you're like, tight. Man, yeah. I would work for years, never get to that. Is that it for us? What are you streaming tomorrow?
I think that's it. So the plan is to try to stream some Nightreign. I've been playing with Silver and Lemon. So hopefully we'll get that going.
Very cool. Yeah. So tomorrow, Johnny plays live on Twitch. And for me, probably a normal video next week. Might do a preview on something, and we're going to get back on the saddle because a lot of the games just sort of weren't coming out in the last couple of weeks, and they are starting to explode, as well as maybe some experimental stuff that I'm working on. And then the side podcast will probably be on Monday, maybe Tuesday, just depends. So if you have questions, you can always DM me or Twitter me. Thank you, everybody who got this far. If you get a chance, and this is where I ask you for something, when I hit stop on this, if you could please leave a comment on the video, I would appreciate it. We get a ton of views, we get people viewing, but they don't comment, and that does hurt the video. So anyway.
And if you don't have a comment, leave your favorite emote. And if you don't have a favorite emote, leave an eggplant. Do it.
Peace out, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Bye-bye. Now we're going to see a bunch of eggplants.
There's going to be fucking eggplants all the